Cullahcast number 15. I'm here live with Uncle Steve, Stephen Wolff. What's going on?
That's a very difficult question to answer.
Well, I try to.
So what about this tea? Are we going to put that tea in there? Or,
Yeah,
that'll get
it's
us
still
started.
a little hot.
Yeah, it's a little icy. We wait
We'll
for it
just
to
take
come
a
down.
second.
Yeah, we'll take
I
a
like
break.
this is a ginger turmeric tea.
Okay.
And I know that you said that you weren't so sure about teas.
I don't like tea much, but I know.
How much tea have you had?
Yeah, that's a good question. I haven't had tea for about 30 years. Maybe,
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
That's a long time. My mom and your grandpa and grandpa used to drink tea. But my dad, your grandpa loved tea.
What did he drink?
It was just tea.
Like black tea?
Yeah, black tea wasn't something that was popular. There weren't all these varieties. Yeah, probably just Lipton or some easily available, nothing exotic.
Yeah, just regular tea.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get it.
Okay,
I think it's just I just put it in. It'll take a couple minutes and then we'll pour it. I'll pour it for you.
Yeah, you just do what you got to do. Do the thing that works for the podcast.
Yeah, no, this is a necessary component. Tea is a big part of it. I have to force feed the guests the tea, and if they don't accept the tea, then I kick them to the road.
Yeah, there's in the room back there. There's a setup. All these white tubes and bags of tea hanging.
Mm-hmm. It's like foie gras, but with tea. You know.
I don't know what foie gras is, but I like the word.
I think
foie gras.
I think that's when they force feed.
Force feed
lambs.
Geese.
Geese.
Right?
Yeah. Not lambs.
Yeah, foie gras. Yeah, foie gras. Yeah. I know what that is.
So, but tea. So yeah, it's a torture chamber back there, essentially. But for tea. So it's not. It's a teacher. Teacher. It's just a torturing tea.
Tea. Yeah.
But thanks for coming on podcast.
My pleasure.
For the past few months, been taking some lessons from you, all different types of things, composition and voice and piano, and moving forward with that. And I appreciate that. I think it's interesting that my whole life I've been pretty musical, but we hadn't really, and it seems now that I might be one of the only of the hundreds of cousins that I have that are pursuing music, as the full passion.
Yeah, probably.
And I don't know. I mean, Nell does a lot of music.
Yeah,
but she's got a lot of other things going on. But I think she's pretty committed.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's many other. Because you're you're the eldest male.
Right, of 17 kids. Yeah.
My mom's 7.
She's number 7, right? She's the.
No, she's 10.
She's
7.
No, she's 7, right?
Yeah, lucky number 7. How fast can you name them all?
Mary, Steve, Chris, Treese, Claire, Mark, and then I start slowing down.
Yeah, right.
I can name them all down, but it would take a little bit. Let's not do that today.
Yeah, that's okay.
And it comes to the nieces and nephews, or your grandma and grandpa's grandchildren. It's got to be around 100, if not over 100 now.
I heard Nora, my little sister Nora, was the 100th. Someone told me that.
Oh,
that was So that was she's 14, so 2003 or no, I think she was born after 9/11, so 2002 maybe or something. Maybe something like that, or maybe not. Man, see, I can't even remember my own family, and I couldn't imagine 17. But how long? You were out of the house when you were still having sisters and brothers being popped out.
Well, we were all together in that one house for one summer. Nell had just been born; she's the youngest, and Mary was still there, and I was a senior at Marquette. So Mary was living there, but she wasn't.
So you were graduating college when Nell was born.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is that? 21, 22 years?
22, yeah, 21, 22, something like that years between myself and Nell, and between the youngest and the oldest, probably 23 years.
Sure. So why do you think that because music was, some of the people might know the backstory. I usually open up with, one of the first things I tell people is that I came from a musical family, and my mom's one of 17. And then people usually go, "What?
What?" Yeah.
And I just met a lovely folk singer in Minneapolis, whose dad was from one of 17.
Oh, neat.
And
what's the name?
Well, her name is Hannah, but she goes by Hema. And it's really beautiful. She just released some music this last week.
Oh, wow.
beautiful folk singing, just like Eau Claire, Wisconsin, kind of this real soft healing type music, of just really reflective and really, melancholy things, and just such a sweet voice and such a sweet person. And that was the first time I ever met. I was like, whoa, because usually like, oh yeah, I'm from a big family, 10. I'd be like,
yeah.
get out of here with your
10.
But I mean, so what made, because you were all musical.
Yeah.
So what made you
go into music?
Go and be the one to do you know?
I can surmise. I can think about how that happened. I've always been an obsessive, hardworking person. Most of us are. My mom and dad never stopped. My dad was a tenor in the church choir.
Oh. Okay.
He played drums. My mom was a pianist. My mom and dad love music. They just love music. She was a pianist and an organist, and she sang in the choir. So growing up, we always had a piano, and you'd always hear Mom playing the piano. Your grandma just playing the piano.
Was she always a pianist, or did she start the music when she met Grandpa?
No, she was a pianist from grade school.
Oh, really? Okay.
A pianist and a clarinetist in high school. She played clarinet, so she just loved music, and that was passed on to us. My dad loved music; he loved singing, and every year during Lent, he would practice the piano. It was his thing for Lent. Okay. He never got good at playing the piano, but he did.
He tried.
Work year after year at it, and it was the same. It was the same piece every year that he would practice. And
what piece? Do you remember?
Something from the Thompson book. I think you might have some Thompson books at home. Thompson, for everybody who's not aware of that, it's a method that was used in the 50s, 60s, and 70s for learning to play the piano. The Thompson method. Okay.
So you think that? What do you think? Being the eldest had any particular?
No, I just
it was just your personality.
I was given a creative gift, and I played basketball. I learned discipline by playing basketball when I was in grade school. I mean, we had to play piano because Mom and Dad wanted us to, so we played piano, and I liked it. It was a lot of fun. But I really loved basketball, so I played basketball. I asked my mom if I could stop playing the piano and start playing and not play the piano anymore, so I can play basketball. So I played basketball, but we're not big, we're not tall.
Right.
And I realized my junior year in high school that I wasn't going to be 6'5", and I wasn't going to jump over the hoop, over the rim.
Were you able to dunk ever?
I never was able to dunk.
No.
Yeah.
That's 10 feet, man.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
I mean,
I can't. I was always shitty at basketball too. I just could never. You can practice the accuracy of shooting, but when people have physical advantage over you, it's pretty difficult in a sport.
Yeah, I practiced the piano. I practiced basketball just around the clock. I had a basketball in my room, and I had all these exercises that I would do with the basketball, spinning the basketball, doing all kinds of maneuverability things. And so I learned discipline, how to analyze an area in which I wanted to gain expertise, and I just transferred that to music. When I realized I wasn't going to do anything in basketball, I wasn't going to be in the next Pete Maravich. He was a big name back when I was in grade school.
Okay.
And he was one of the early guys to do all these non-traditional basketball moves, like dribbling between your legs and behind your back and passing behind your back. He was famous. He came from I think it was St. Louis, maybe it was Louisiana. Anyway, so he was a very well-known basketball player, just an outstanding performer. And so I realized I wasn't going to be able to do anything like that. And so I went into music because I liked music. I really did like music. What happened is I discovered the Beatles. And that was like, wow, what is this? What's this? You know, so because I did mostly classical music growing up, playing classical piano.
You don't have too much of a connection around your environment.
Right, yeah. And it was just the music was so beautiful, and it spoke to my generation. I grew up in the hippie generation. I was a hippie for a while when I got out of basketball before I got into music.
It's a good transition.
I won't say I was really hippie. I probably pretend I played at being a hippie.
Right. Dress like one?
Yeah, dress like one and
do all the right things.
Do all the right things, and yeah. So that was sort of a transition period when I wanted to be a little bit cool. Well, I wanted to be cool.
So then, summer of '69. What were you doing summer of 16?
Summer '69. I was in. I was playing basketball, freshman
Okay.
at the high school.
Okay, you were in
that I
high
went to.
school.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had this passion. I always wanted to do something to the utmost, and so then I turned that passion toward music, and I really did love it.
Yeah.
I had it in my bones. I had it in my genes. I mean, when my mother was pregnant with all of us, she was playing the piano.
Yeah.
So this music would be a part of the sound backdrop of our coming to life and growing in the womb.
That's what my mom always says too. When she talks about why I like music or why I've been doing it is because she said she was in the band, and she was playing a lot when she was pregnant with me. At least that's what she said.
Yeah.
And that's what she's like. Well, she always says it's every cell division, there's harmonies and melodies going on.
Yeah, it's like the music of the spheres, and the cosmology, and the music
Right.
of the planets. Yeah, so even at a infinitely small level,
Prenatal and postnatal. Yeah, that's an interesting thing. The prenatal development seems to be if not the most important thing, one of the most important parts of human development. The stress on the mother or lack of stress on the mother or the environments that the mother is going through really affect the outcome of genetic expression of the child in a lot of ways. And it seems like it's pretty conclusive evidence is that those are the most important point. The development, but also straight out of the womb, those early stages set the stage for the development. So then what made you decide to go from I like music to, you said you're just obsessiveness, or?
Yeah, I tend to be obsessive, and it's better to be obsessive about something like exercise and music than be obsessive about drinking or doing drugs, and so
something productive.
Doing something productive, and I just loved it. My father was a writer. Your grandfather was
difficult though to go full speed ahead with something like
music. But I had to review what I had learned in grade school before I got into basketball. So I did that, and so I practiced on my own for a couple of years. Just practice and practice. I did a lot of improvising. I played some of the Beatles music, although I really wanted to compose my own music. I wanted to improvise my own stuff, but I did learn some things from the Beatles, and I had this background of classical music, so I had a lot of knowledge. I could read music. I could play the piano relatively well. I mean, I played it until I was in 8th grade. 8th grade was against my will, but I played some difficult music in 8th grade. I can't remember what they were. Zug der Zwerge, a Grieg piece I think I did on my recital for 8th grade. So I had developed some skill.
You weren't about it in 8th grade.
I was not. I was not about it at all.
It was more. This is chore. That's a chore if you're being forced to do it.
Yeah,
that's what happened to me.
But I did it dutifully, because I was the oldest son, and I was trained to do what I had to do, what I was supposed to do. And most of the time that my mom and dad were right about what I was supposed to do. I was supposed to be a good big brother, and I really took that seriously.
Yeah.
And I was a good big brother, did it very dutifully. I did, and I had to be a good example for all my younger brothers. Mm-hmm. And so I was dutiful in piano, and mom says I was a perfectionist, and I'd drive her crazy because she wasn't quite as much a perfectionist as I was. I would not get off a piece until I played everything exactly as it was written, every dynamic mark, every retard, everything. And so when I got into improvising, then I began revisiting the lives of some of these great composers. You know the names Beethoven and Bach, and I began seeing them as the great heroes of my life.
Sure.
And I just had so much, and it was just such a fun thing to do, improvising. I could improvise for hours. There was a room at my high school. It was a Catholic high school. It was Carmel High School for boys. And there was a room for.
I went to Carmel High School for girls.
Yeah, your mom went to They were right next to each other. There was a hall in between that joined them. We shared a gym and a cafeteria.
But did you guys eat cafeteria? Would you eat lunch together, boys and girls, or what?
Yeah, boys and girls would eat lunch together. And your mom, I was gone by the time your mom was in.
That's gotta that's a recipe for some craziness.
That was some crazy.
Separate the boys and girls only.
We had dances together and
right.
Yeah.
I've seen. They still have schools like that, like Marquette High School and Divine Savior Holy Angels around here.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I don't think they're next to each other, but they do like have group things together.
There were Carmelite nuns, and there were Carmelite.
Is that so? Carmelite
priests and brothers.
Is that like
an order of some kind? Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember what exactly it was, what it is, but
I mean, I like caramelized onions.
Yeah. So, and I don't even remember where the word Carmel comes from. I think it's Mount Carmel. There was an event that happened at a religious event or an appearance of maybe the Blessed Virgin at this on this mountain, and so I think that's where the order began, the Carmelites. And the men and women have roles to play, brothers and sisters, and then priests. Anyway, so at this high school, I began playing the piano in what was the yearbook room. So there's a yearbook room where all the nerds would gather and do their yearbook thing. I mean, I was a nerd. I got cool for once for a little bit.
Basketball though.
Well, I was still a kind of a nerd because I did that to the utmost. The coach says, go get a haircut, and I shaved all my hair off, and everybody's laughing at me, it was fine. I don't care, if they laugh at me, it's fine. But I got really good at the details, but everybody was so much big. I mean, I was really a dead shot. I could do hooks from half court, hook shots from either hand, and sink them. But how good is that, when you're playing a game? I could dribble behind my back and pass behind my back, and, But what it's not. There's no Olympic sport for dribbling between your legs or behind your back. It was more like I was practicing it, and I also wanted to look good. I practiced it in a way so that it was balletic. I wanted everything to be beautiful. So there was an aesthetic component in the basketball, and that translated to playing the piano when I began taking lessons at the Wisconsin College Conservatory. There were people who knew a bit about music. They did pretty well. But I began studying physiology and psychology, and at Marquette I studied philosophy and theology and art history.
What was your degree?
I had what do they call them? They call them majors. I had a major in English literature and fine arts, and then I had minors in philosophy and theology.
Okay.
So it wasn't a degree, but it was a fine arts,
right?
Yeah, I got a bachelor's.
Fine arts,
but each of those wasn't a degree.
Right.
It was just a major with so many credits, and then you have a major.
Right.
So I remember what happened. I committed myself to the world of the imagination. That was even more important than music. I discovered that when I was reading or writing or playing music, that I was more alive, it seemed, than when I did anything else. And so I wanted to commit myself to the world of the imagination. And so the high school, the boys went on a retreat. All the high school seniors went on a retreat, and then I made this big, grandiose statement that I wanted to devote my life to music and literature. So,
what did they think about that?
It wasn't any news.
Nerd.
Yeah, it wasn't any news to them because there I was practicing the piano around the clock in the.
Right.
And every time I didn't have a class, I was in the yearbook room with the other nerds. We were all nerds.
Nerds rule the world now.
Yeah. I'll tell you something funny. I had a church job in Toledo, Ohio, and there was a fellow who was a restaurateur, and a friend of mine, and he. Had many restaurants. It was very successful. He was asked to give a talk to the seniors at a nearby high school, Catholic high school. And so here's the thing he said. His son was a nerd. He's a nerd. And so he said to all the people in the class. He said, "Everybody here, all you football players, all you basketball players, all you leaders, look around you. Look at the nerds. Find the nerds. Look at them very closely, because in a few years, you're going to be working for them."
Yeah,
that's kind of funny. I mean, it may not be true. It may not be true, but there's something to say about that.
I mean, the great leaders now, like when in business, are all nerds.
Yeah, in tech.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely tech is a huge thing.
They're nerds, complete nerds.
Yeah, the special type of nerd.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, what was the first composition. Do you remember the first composition that you made, or one that you remember? It was like really be like,
Well,
this is it.
I used to improvise a lot, so I don't. There's only one piece that I remember from my high school days that I still play today. It's a piece that I call the Country Mile. And it's a walking boogie bass. Dum pum 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 pum. That's the bottom hand. Mm-hmm. Then I have a melody over the top of it, and you can improvise for hours on it.
Yeah, boogie woogie.
Yeah, boogie woogie. So that's the first piece.
Is boogie woogie? Is that a thing? Boogie woogie or
boogie
woogie?
No, okay. Boogie woogie. You could call it boogie, but boogie woogie is a style of piano playing,
right?
Which appeared in Chicago back during Prohibition, before Prohibition, but it blossomed in times of Prohibition because
it's pretty influential in the evolution of jazz, right? And
it played a part in that. Jazz and jazz was.
Is it a type of jazz, boogie woogie, or is that?
Yeah, you could call it jazz. It's okay. The history of jazz. So we've got the songs in the fields, the work songs, the call and response songs. So that was then gospel music, African American gospel music. That was pretty much the beginning of it. Then there was ragtime. Ragtime, piano ragtime.
Scott Joplin.
Scott Joplin is a preeminent composer, brilliant composer. I played a lot of his stuff, and then can't think of the guy's name who claimed to invented jazz.
Jelly Roll Morton.
Jelly Roll Morton. Yeah. Yeah, he claims he invented jazz, and maybe he did or maybe he didn't. But jazz was a confluence in that. And
he's got a good name, though.
Yeah, it's a great name.
That's half what you need.
Yeah, he's got a great name. Yeah. So anyway, that jazz appeared in the 19th or early in the 19th century, and then in those forms that I mentioned, and then in New Orleans in the red light district. There's a lot of money to be made.
I think in high school I did a paper on the evolution of jazz or the creation of jazz. And I remember Jelly Roll Morton was in there, and they were talking about New Orleans, about how actually the racism and the segregation actually might have been what caused or helped be a catalyst to create the certain type of jazz, because there was all these because they had that law of like if you were any bit African descent, you were all black.
Right.
So it doesn't matter what you are, even if you're 1/10, we're going to consider you black. And so then they'd segregate them all. So they forcibly move people. And so there's all these families that were patricians and wealthy, classically trained musicians that all of a sudden are thrown in with with people that were impoverished or that were slaves or whatever it was. And then all of a sudden they had this combination of these two cultures, where then they have this Western and African influence thrown together.
Well, yeah. And African Americans have contributed to world history. One of the great musics of the world. It's just jazz is just a fantastic music. Just an amazing.
So this tea should be ready.
The tea's ready. Okay,
be ready for it.
Yeah.
It's not too crazy.
No.
That's good. I've been drinking a lot of this. It's reishi, ginger turmeric. I get some comments from Jenny McCullah, born in 2005. She says the name of the song that Grandpa played was "Long, Long Ago."
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Long, long ago. Yeah. So what is it? This is not Radio Land. That's other. What is it? Internet Land or Podcast Land? What's out there?
Yeah, well, we're on YouTube right now.
So YouTube Land.
Yeah, but this will be turned into an audio version for anyone to listen to on Apple or Spotify or whatever. So right now, we're on YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah, so that jazz is just a wonderful, wonderful kind of music. And my mom and dad grew up listening to big band music.
Sure.
And so that was...
Isn't that what the band that you guys were in, the whole family band? So
yeah, the Wolff family band.
There never was all 17? Or was there ever...
most
of them.
No, because I really wasn't in the band. I composed some pieces for the band, but I had gone out east to Bowling Green, and I was working on a bunch of master's degrees in music. So
How many master's degrees did you get?
I just got 2. I was working on 5, but I only got 2 master's degrees.
Okay.
But I did the coursework for the others. Ran into some issues I won't talk about.
Sure.
But it was just a lot of fun.
Sure.
Just went to grad school for about 7 years.
That's great.
Yeah, just a lot of fun.
learning all
Yeah.
that.
Oh, learning all that. Yeah, just
That'd be like it's pretty much a life sentence for people to do that now, unless you get paid. I just had one master's degree, and it's in crippling debt. I couldn't imagine doing multiple.
oh, I paid for it as I went too. I was a piano tuner in my
see,
20s.
that's amazing. There'd be
So
no way to pay for it as you go now.
Yeah, I don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, probably not.
I think from the 1960s, the tuition has gone up 1,500%.
Wow.
Like my master's degree was at Trinity College was like $70,000
Oh my
for
gosh.
2 years, and that's normal. That's like a normal
I
private institution.
Wow. I was just paying a couple thousand maybe for a semester or a year.
Holy crap!
Oh yeah.
Jesus Christ!
So I guess it was a time to go. It was a time to go then.
Yeah.
To go to grad school, you can
Well, everywhere else,
afford it. Yeah.
everywhere else in the world you can do that, unless you're lucky. Some people are lucky and they can get paid to teach or something, or in certain engineering degrees. There are ways to go and do it where you can do work study or you'll get paid as you go, but there's no chance in America, at least, to do that.
Yeah.
Now
I did that. I had a bunch of teaching assistantships, teaching fellowships, and so I did support my school by doing that.
Yeah,
and
that's
then I
great.
tuned pianos. I also had a full-time organ job, so I was working a lot. But I was able. But nowadays you say you can't do that. I mean, you can't even do that. You can't even work hard and put yourself through school.
No. I was doing the math with someone the other day at minimum wage. Or it was yesterday, just a couple of days ago. We were talking about minimum wage, and it's $7.25 or something. And then, so you're getting 40 hours a week. You're getting like $150 a week or $180 a week, or no,
Wow,
$280 a week.
Yeah, it's just that's not even enough to live on.
No, so yeah, $1,000 a month, basically, if you
Yeah.
work full time, and that's for most cities, that's just what you're gonna pay in rent for most of the places you go.
Yeah, it was a lot better back then in that respect. Back when I was growing up.
Yeah, I just think it hasn't adjusted for inflation. It's just stayed the same. Like the amount of money people are getting have stayed the same, but everyone's working harder and harder and harder, and the productivity is all up, but the wages are the same. It's fascinating how that. I don't know how sustainable that is, but yeah. So then when did you move back to Milwaukee then, or not
let's see.
back, but like how many places have you lived?
I grew up in Illinois, where your mom grew up, and then I was in Milwaukee when I was doing my undergraduate work. I like Milwaukee, nice, really nice town.
You went to Marquette, yeah.
I went to Marquette, and then I lived at home for a couple of years, saving money to go to grad school. And then I got accepted in grad school, and then they started paying me all these stipends, and so I just kept going to grad school because that's what I wanted to do anyway.
Yeah.
I just wanted to study music, learn
Paid to
music,
learn.
compose. Yeah, so they were paying.
No-brainer.
Yeah, they're paying me to teach classes, which I loved. I love teaching.
Right.
So the professors would often give me the big classes for the 101 classes where you have 100, 200 kids in a big room, and those aren't always the funnest classes to teach. But I loved it. It was performing.
Those are tough.
It was they're tough, and I don't know how much learning was going on, but I entertained them and threw some wonderful ideas at them, and some people could have picked up some things. I mean, these are just courses that some of the.
Did you get the whole class to sing together?
I should have done that. That would have been funny. Oh, I should have done that.
Have you ever seen that where there's this guy who'll do that, and it was Bobby McFerrin. You know Bobby McFerrin? He had this
Wonderful guy, yeah.
He had this great thing where he just did a pentatonic scale, and he was just showing people. So he would jump on he would jump up and down the pentatonic scale on the stage, and he would do it, and he would have people sing along, and then he would sing along, and then he did it where he had the audience just participate. So he would jump, and they would sing based on where he was jumping, and then he would jump. He would move multiple notes instead of just one, and people got it. People got it. Like they just knew it intuitively. It was a TED Talk, so maybe maybe some of them are more educated, but people intuitively know that scale.
Who doesn't like music?
Yeah,
I'm sure there are people who don't like music, but
I've heard that, but I don't believe
I've
it.
never met anybody who doesn't like music.
Maybe they're like more apathetic to it, or like music's cool, but they don't think they really understand how impactful it is. Like they might love these movies and they get really moved by the movies, but they don't understand how important the music is in the movies, or maybe they don't. I think people who say they don't like music, maybe they don't really understand what music is.
Well, music
Or I
is
don't know.
extremely valuable in the education process. In the Middle Ages, music was one of the highest areas of study that you could engage in. Music, theology, and music were way at the top. So music has been for a long time thought of as a wonderful educational tool, and that they've done some studies. And I don't remember exactly what the results were, but when you're doing
you can
music,
learn.
and when you're doing music, your brain is operating at some huge number,
Yeah,
maybe 360 cycles or operations per second. Your brain is operating at emotionally, physically, moving fingers around, moving your tongue around, your lips around, your voice, your vocal cords. So you're doing these operations, and then you also have to operate physical operations, but then you have operations in your brain. And then there's operations in your psyche, your emotional self, operations expressing certain emotions, certain pain, certain joy, certain happiness, whatever the song is about, or whatever it's conveying. You have to latch onto that, and then you communicate that. So there's just a huge amount of work that your brain is doing, and the more that the more work that your brain does in certain periods of your life, for example, when you're a child, the more work your brain does, then the more the dendrites and the neurons and all that stuff is hooked up, and pretty soon you've got a.
That's why it's a travesty when music departments are cut, or they have terrible music teachers, or nothing. No one. It seems people are seeming to think that that's a disposable thing, that you should just learn.
Some people
math
do,
and
but
science.
it always comes back. There's always a backlash.
Yeah, now that because they did STEM. Have you heard STEM education? It's a
science
huge thing. But now, like there's big movements towards changing it to STEAM.
Put music at the end, huh?
Well, put
art.
art,
in there
science,
too.
technology, engineering, art, and mathematics.
Okay.
And STEAM is a cooler word anyway.
Yeah, it's a better word. Yeah,
So
STEM.
STEM. All right, we'll get STEM.
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 But steam, you can steam ahead.
Yeah, steam.
And you're steaming.
Steaming.
What's that?
Steaming.
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 Yeah.
Steven Steaming.
Ian steaming.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, no, I think it's really important to have both, like have an arts education and a
scientific education. Excellent too. I mean, science is properly. It's not entirely, but it's properly logical. It's not entirely logical. And I know Einstein, when he was thinking about things, inventions, he'd liken it. I think he would liken it to like playing the violin. He was also an excellent violinist.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So he would compare his creativity in inventing new ways of looking at the world with the creativity of a Beethoven or a Mozart or Coldplay or whoever, or
Coldplay.
the Beatles. Or
do you like Coldplay?
I don't remember.
Just threw that in there.
I remember
pop culture reference.
I remember the name, and I remember one time when
there's some good tunes they make.
Yeah, I remember them playing at
a lot of arpeggios and a lot of.
That may not be the group I was thinking that I wanted to think, but that's the name that popped into my head. Yeah,
there's some really good songs that they've made, for sure. They were the biggest band in the world for a little bit.
Okay, that's probably the group then. I was turned on to that by one of my.
It's a good piano player who is one of the lead singers. Great voice and great compositions. Yeah, I didn't know Einstein played the violin. But I remember I just recently saw it was this legend of the meeting between Einstein and Charlie Chaplin.
Oh yeah.
And Charlie Chaplin.
I don't remember that exactly. What happened?
Charlie Chaplin went up to Einstein. He goes, "Oh man, it's so amazing that isn't it crazy that you know so much but no one understands anything you're doing? What do you think about that? And you seem to be so intelligent." And he goes, "Yeah, well, with you don't say anything and everyone understands everything you're saying."
That's great. Yeah, that's
meeting
great.
of the minds of just these two opposite ends of the spectrum.
That's funny. He doesn't say it. Yeah, Charlie Chaplin doesn't say anything.
Doesn't say anything, but everyone knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Even though he's not talking. But Einstein, he's talking about all that stuff, and everyone's like, what the hell is he talking about? Relativity? There's a lot of great essays that Einstein has written, and outside of, he dabbled in political things or dabble in...
I read about that a little bit,
in society and things, and he had a lot of... people like to paint these figures as one-dimensional. Like, oh, he was smart, and that he was just this genius, and he couldn't tie his shoes, and that's what everyone really talks about him. But yeah, I didn't know that, he was also that wasn't a bookkeeper. What was he? Something like that, right? He worked in accounting or something.
I don't remember anything about that, but
he pushed numbers as a job.
Oh, when he was young,
I think so.
Yeah, I remember he wasn't really good in school.
Yeah, that's what people. The legend is. Yeah, the teachers would be like, he's gonna fail here.
He's not gonna make anything. He's just thinking too fast and way too far beyond everybody else. Like Thomas Aquinas, the famous philosopher from the Middle Ages, he was called the dumb ox. And he wrote a shelf of the most amazing philosophical books that have been written.
Yeah, the education system, at least now and stuff too, part of growing up in grade school, it seems to be this kind of factory mindset, just like clock in, clock out, bell rings, next thing. It's just reciting things, memorizing, and then you forget it, and then people are just graded based on these arbitrary kind of tests, and no one's even checking if the tests are right. Like there's and actually it's a big racket too. A lot of these standardized tests, like there's one company that owns all of the different test making things, and there's been third party studies into the validity, and half the time these tests are wrong. They mark the wrong answer as the right answer, and then people are failing these tests, and in people's whole there's all this pressure on these kids to like do well on these tests, and it doesn't seem all these great people through history doesn't like put them in this little box, and they seem to be, everyone looks at them as not achieving anything, or not being able or capable of doing anything, but then you throw them into a different environment, and all of a sudden they're flourishing. It's interesting. And I think that, I bet the more music education, because that's a world where probably, there's definitely I'm sure teachers and classes and stuff that are more, you play this note right, and you have to play that like this, and you have to do this, and you have to do this, and and then I'm sure there's a lot of limitations with the minds of certain teachers or composers that they believe one thing is the right way to do it and everything. But good teachers and at least the ability to improvise and have that, you have freedom, and you have that ability to think. I bet it's be incredibly useful for.
I think so. Yeah, the mind has to be allowed to follow its own path. Every student has his or her own path, and who knows what it is. The only person that might know would be the student, him or herself, and also there's another aspect of learning and growth, and that is humor, and joy. And my goal, I have a bunch of students. I teach music privately, a bunch of instruments, and my goal is to first of all create the love of music, if I can. I'm not really creating it. I'm just opening the possibility that they might have a love for music, because then they'll be self-motivated, and that's how most people who are successful become reach their success in their world. They're self-motivated, and they do something they really want to do. Like these technology people we were talking about, they're very interested in what they're doing. They love what they're doing. Yeah. I'm sure. And their minds are incredibly inquisitive and curious. And what if we did this? What if we did that? What if we did that? Mm-hmm. Let's try playing it like this. What if we played it backwards? What if we played it with our feet? This piano piece. Yeah. Or what if we were composing, and what if we wrote the words backwards and set the words backwards? What would happen then? Maybe you wouldn't make a lot of money. You wouldn't have but it certainly is exciting to think about that. You wouldn't be able to sell it probably, or maybe you would. Who knows? Maybe you did it palindromically. You could have a song that read the same forward and backward.
Didn't you make one like that?
Yeah, I've written a bunch of palindromes, but it's a
I remember when
part of the stock.
When I was a kid with my friend, we were messing around with recording and reversing things, and we just thought it would be funny to figure out what things would be said, how they would be said backwards, because they would always talk about rock and roll records, you play it backwards, and it's these Satanist prayers or something. Yeah, like the Beatles are supposed to have written something played something backward. John Lennon.
John Lennon's dead. John is dead. John is dead.
Or was it Paul is dead?
Paul is dead. Paul is. Yeah, I think it's Paul.
Someone's dead.
Yeah, one of them died, but didn't die.
Right. Yeah, we found Yamzi nasty ass, or nasty ass. If you say nasty ass and then you so whoever wants to take this recording and say nasty ass, take nasty ass and then reverse it, and it's actually Satan. So it sounds like Satan. So it'd be Yamzi nasty ass would be Satan is my God, because we try to take that cue from like, oh, it's this Satanist prayer, and we try to, well, what would it be what would it be actually if it was so much fun. We were just laughing and laughing and laughing about how silly like things sound when, or try to have like words. That's what was so cool about nasty ass, because it's just a funny, nasty ass sounds funny, and then it actually sounds like a word when you put it in reverse, and that not a lot of words are like that, because it's palindromic is one thing, but the phonetic and the articulation of the vowels and the phonetic, the composition of it from forward to backwards, right? That's not necessary.
A lot of vagaries and ambiguities about the pronunciation. You can't just,
because palindromic
you can write it back and read
it.
You can write a palindrome, and it's a lot easier than saying a palindrome.
Like, what's your favorite palindrome, or one of them?
All right. I wrote a poem on this palindrome. It's a man, a plan, a canal, Panama.
You wrote that?
I didn't write that.
Oh, okay,
It was.
I've heard that one.
It was by. We don't really know who wrote it, and I did research on it because I was writing a man, a plan, a canal, Panama. It reads the same forward and backwards, and it was about Teddy Roosevelt. And Teddy Roosevelt was quite an accomplished person. He taught literature, gave lectures on Italian poetry, and he was just really a bright guy. So, suspicion falls on him for having written that. Well, anyway, I love palindromes and all kinds of word games, and so I wrote a sonnet which used that phrase down one side like an acrostic. The first line was that line: a man, a plan, a canal, Panama. The last letters of every line read down: a man, a plan, a canal, Panama.
Oh, wow.
And then so it was a square of a man, a plan, a canal, Panama, and you could start at any corner, and you going either way, and you could read the palindrome. Palindrome would appear, yeah. And then I wrote the poem was all about the Panama Canal.
Wow.
So I wrote this poem about the Panama Canal, and then had this palindrome all around. Encircling.
Two-dimensional palindrome.
Yeah.
Matrices.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's my favorite palindrome.
That's cool. That's like that's another level of palindrome. Is it, if something is like a palindrome, is it palindromatic? Palindromic?
If we
palindromic?
If we're going to just make an adjective out of the word palindrome, we'd probably say palindromic.
Sure.
Maybe we could say palindromicacious.
Palindromicacious.
Palindromixical.
Palindromixical. What's that? Is that a Greek word? Palindrome?
Yeah, palindrome is a Greek word. And drome, to run, and palin, backwards. I believe those are the etymology of the two.
To run backwards. Oh.
Palindrome, or maybe both ways. Maybe it means both ways. Run both ways. Pal means both ways, and drome, like hippodrome. I definitely know that's a Greek word meaning run, or a run. For the hippodrome was where the horses ran. It was a racetrack, the hippodrome. So palindromic is definitely a Greek word. Those Greeks, all those Greeks, they did so much.
Yeah, I wonder like how, because it seems to be that they're the foundation for most of Western thought, right? I mean,
I'd say so. Yeah, I think pretty much everybody agrees.
Like what else? I mean, but Plato would talk about the ancients, right? I mean, they probably got it from other things too. But what? I feel like, I mean, what was that? The height of of like Athens and Sparta and all these. I mean, well, Pythagoras was like way back.
Pythagoras was like 600 something, 650
BC.
Maybe, 650 BC.
And then they didn't. The end of the reign of their culture and of their society was what, like in.
Well, so when Alexander,
right,
when he did his conquering, it was entering into a Hellenic stage. So it was Greek-like. Alexander was a Macedonian, but he studied with Aristotle. Aristotle was his teacher. Oh, I think it was like probably 325, maybe when Well, that would be the end of the Greek
So
proper.
like 1,000 years almost.
Well, it goes way back. It goes even back before that. Pythagoras was, like I said, 600, and then there were philosophers, a whole slew of philosophers, which go by the name of the pre-Socratics. So the three major philosophers were
Socratics?
the pre-Socratics.
Oh, pre-Socratics.
Pre-Socratics. So there was a Miletus and Cratylus and just a bunch of names, and we have writings by some of them, many of them. So we have a whole history of Greek philosophy before the three great philosophers of the Greek culture. Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Right. So Socrates taught Plato. Plato studied with Socrates, and then Aristotle was taught by Plato. And so we have three generations there. And
which one was poisoned?
Well, Socrates was condemned to death for leading the youth away from the gods. Socrates questioned the sanity and the rationality of believing in the gods. He didn't propose any other gods, but the status quo was brought into question by Socrates, and so there were a bunch of people who wanted him dead. And he also got a lot of people angry. He'd walk around asking people what did they know, and he would always prove that they knew nothing. And not to be mean, but just to say humility is where we want to start.
Yeah, I've heard stories of that.
Yeah, and he was
just go around,
just start a conversation.
Hey, what do you do?
Yeah, what do you do? And you
don't know shit.
he would be very. The dialogues that we have were actually very civil.
I'm sure,
but
he wasn't.
But he wasn't.
Brooklyn.
He wasn't really trying to get in. He wasn't trying to get anybody angry, but he did because, unfortunately, when he questioned anybody about their work or a field that they were interested or anything that we call knowledge, he would prove that really we don't really know anything. And
people's egos would get a little hurt. And
their egos get hurt because they're the best joint maker in Athens, right. Or the best plumber, or not a plumber probably, but a carpenter, or the sophists were examples of people who used logic, which was invented in
Sophists.
The sophists. They were called the wise ones. Sophistry is
Sophia.
Sophia is wisdom.
Yeah.
And so the sophists were the people who claimed to have knowledge, but they didn't have real knowledge. And those are the people that Socrates really got mad, because they made their living with students. Socrates, I don't know how he made his money, but he used to be a bricklayer. What is another word for a bricklayer? What's that?
A mason?
A mason, yeah, stoneworker. And his dad was was a mason, and so was he, but he never practiced his craft. So he just walked around, and I guess people fed him. He just walked around, and the weather was usually pretty nice in Greece. Around the Mediterranean, and pretty close to the
olive here, olive there.
Go to an olive tree. Yeah, and that's interesting because Athens was famous for its olive gardens, for its olive fields. They were a bastion of defense against the
olives were defense.
The olive trees were a bastion of defense against the people who wanted to conquer.
Why?
Well, they'd have to work their way through the trees. Anybody who was attacking them with
a pretty thick.
Yeah, they plant them pretty close, and they could. The olives would produce olives.
A grove, or is it a?
Yeah. It was a huge. It was an orchard. It was a
orchard.
Just an orchard all around Athens. They
have now, right? I mean, Greek olive oil is.
Italian.
Italian.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the guy who made it a law that they should grow olives. What is the guy's name? Some Greek guy. Some Greek. The Archon. So he was the leader of an Archon. So
Archon was just like, I'll have what he's having.
Yeah, I'll live what he's having.
I'll live to tell another tale.
Yeah. So they they had a great climate for that, and then. So they grew olives all over Greece. All the city-states were growing olives. I just can't remember that guy's name. He's called Solon the lawgiver.
Solon the lawgiver. That's a good name.
Yeah, Solon. So he was the one who started Solon. You might pronounce it Solon or Solon, Solon, Solon.
Like soul, isn't that Greek for the sun? Or no?
That would be Latin. Latin for sun. But I don't think it had anything to do with that.
Solar.
I don't know
Latin,
what the etymology of his name is.
That's so weird when the Greeks and the Latin and Greek both have the same, like homo or homo, are the same prefix, but they have completely different meanings and they're completely different origins, right?
Yeah, I don't know
Homonym and homogeneous.
Homogeneous.
Or homogeneous. And
so the Latin word for man is one of the Latin
Homo
words for this is
sapien.
homo hominis. So nominative genitive homo hominis, and then the Greeks have homoousian.
means like distributed, or it means like the same, of the same, right?
The same. Yeah, so the Greeks they're used to the word homo.
So it's two different.
Two different meanings,
but they're
but the same
spelled the
sound.
same.
Yeah,
And the same. Yeah, that's confusing.
well, and the Latin and the Romans had a lot of words that they borrowed. The Latin language has many borrowings
So you
from
think they just-
Greek.
Yeah, that very well could be.
But in this case of the homo hominis, the meaning man, and then homo, which is used in the phrase, the theological phrase homoousian, that doesn't mean man. It means the same, as you were saying.
Sure. Same. Huh. So someone else, let's see, we got... art is very underappreciated, someone says. Smoky Water Studios says art is very underappreciated.
Yeah, Smoky Water Studios, you're quite right. It's underappreciated in great parts of the world. And I don't think we really can have an appreciation for art if you are starving.
Right.
It's kind of hard to think about things like that. And so what has been very beneficial is in the West.
Food, it's like, look at this great Monet, and be like, where's my Monet at? I can't eat.
Yeah, can we sell it? Can I eat it?
Can I eat it?
Those apples look pretty good,
Yeah.
That's a wonderful picture of apples or pears. But
did you? So when you said you studied psychology, like you're bringing up needs, and was it part of the? Was it liberal arts type?
There was a
program, or was
there were
it
a couple of courses that I took. I don't remember what they are now.
Just a couple courses.
As an undergraduate, and then I love to read, so I've read a lot of Jung, Freud. I've just read a lot of philosophy. My sister, or your aunt Chris, she's got a PhD in philosophy, in psychology, 2 PhDs in psychology, Jungian psychology.
Oh shit, 2 PhDs.
Yeah, and then your uncle Dave, my brother Dave, has a PhD in psychology, and Kyle.
That's right. Yeah.
Kyle, Jim and Chris's son, has a PhD. Kip. He's got a PhD in psychology. Yeah, so there's a lot of interest in psychology.
Yeah, everyone's just trying to figure out what the hell happened.
What happened?
Why are we like this?
And
what's going on?
My father didn't much like psychology. It was the newfangled thing, I mean, a lot of
it's pretty new.
People in his generation sort of scorned psychology because it was
just rub some elbow grease in it.
All about feelings, and there was a time when you didn't
validity to emotion.
Yeah, you didn't talk about feelings.
But this is the thing about psychology is it doesn't make emotion. It doesn't make it like the king. Like, emotion isn't king. It's just one part of the equation, right? It's just one part of it all. And
that's a part that has been neglected in the West.
I think that's why it's good
amongst
psychology. The more psychology people learn, like young, and I go down the rabbit hole of Jordan Peterson, who I think plenty of times, and he's politically he's more divisive, I guess. But
I don't find him divisive at all. It's just that they don't.
It's just
liberals don't like him and some conservatives don't like him because he's too squishy, and liberals don't like him because he doesn't think that the language should be changed just because certain people want to do certain things with the language.
Yeah, he's got a more. He's Canadian, so he's more liberal than most Americans. But when you read when I listen to him, or you read his like more self-help type things, like it seems pretty. He brought up this this great. He had this thing with the 12
rules for life. 12 rules for life.
The first one was about lobsters. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Top lobster versus bottom lobster.
Yeah, the hierarchies that groups form.
I think it was serotonin or oxytocin. I forget what it was, but he's saying posture. He said, depressed people are slumped, and people who have confidence.
We better.
Oh shit! Yeah.
We got people watching us, right?
They think we're depressed.
Yeah, they think we're depressed. We're confident, aren't we? Are we confident?
We're confident. Yeah. I'm a top lobster. Yeah.
I think what he's talking about was the natural hierarchy,
right?
That occurs in nature,
and that's like against a lot of more recent thoughts about hierarchies, about that there is no hierarchies, or like that. It's an interesting concept. You talk about like, I don't know enough about it, but in nature, it seems to be obvious, right? Around, and then people, because there's such a difference.
The toughest bulls get the
right.
the lady bulls,
Yeah, and the top lobsters are the ones with the the ones that can show that. And they were saying that they would give lobsters, lobsters would fight and they'd lose a fight, and they'd go and they'd sulk and go, and they would actually test their hormones, and they would see that I forget which hormone it is, but I think it's serotonin, but it would be dropped down, and so they'd see this because the lobsters have a much simpler nervous system than humans.
Yeah,
and they would give these
defeated.
recently defeated lobsters antidepressants, give them some serotonin, and they turn right back around and go ready to fight again.
Wow.
And so it's kind of this like, so psychology can, and I think it's a very useful part of the understanding of human. The psyche is something that more recently I've been demystifying the idea of the psyche and what the psychic, just that word psychic, relating to the psyche.
And what is it? How does it exist? What kind of existence does it have?
I don't know.
I mean, we say it's
I'm
associated.
Not psychic, dude.
Yeah. It's associated with the brain,
right?
Because when damage is done to the brain, things change in personality, or there are limitations to one's intellectual abilities because of the accident.
There's your brain, and then there's your brain in your head, and then there's the brain in your stomach, which apparently a lot of the serotonin comes from your stomach.
Oh, that's right. I've heard about that. The nervous system of that. There's the nervous system of your brain, and then there's a nervous system which.
Yeah. And actually, people are saying that the stomach is, because there's trillions of different bacteria that live in your stomach at any given time, and they're actually all those bacteria are what feeds the brain, certain impulses and certain ideas and certain and the fact that all the serotonin is formed in the stomach, that it's this gut feeling that you get, or this gut instinct, or when your stomach drops, it's this intelligence that is inside of you, around your stomach, and I don't know exactly where it is, but I think it's your stomach, and I'm not that well versed in it, but that seems to be the most primitive brain, they call it, like the stomach is the first brain that animals have developed. It's the simple nervous system, and then then the reptilian brain,
and we get
which
is medulla oblongata, right? The medulla,
is that
that's the
one that's right connected to the stem.
It's
connected to the spinal cord, and then the prefrontal cortex and all that stuff. The mammalian brain,
cerebrum, and the cerebellum.
That's the mammalian brain. And then is the third brain, and so like we actually have multiple steps in which we can develop and understand our psyche, probably. So like, I've noticed that when I eat a poor diet, or if I eat food that I don't necessarily agree with, I'm much more anxious. I'm much more, I can't think as clearly.
You're saying you have dreams too.
Yeah, and the dreams are
like
crazy.
Yeah,
the dreams get weirder and weirder with that, and it's 100% related to like it. If I want to have crazy dreams, I'll just eat a bunch of cheese or something, and my stomach is going crazy.
Your
and the stomach's being like.
Yeah.
Sending all these signals of who knows what.
The brain. So your brain is being influenced by whatever's happening.
Yeah, and
in
I don't
know
where the dreams. They say, I know the pineal gland is where a lot of the DMT comes from, like where the spirit molecule, they call it, or whatever.
What's DMT?
It's like I can't remember what dimethyltryptamine.
Oh, it's a chemical.
Yeah, I think it's dimethyltryptamine, something like that. And it's into all life. It's in all life, and actually, it's in a bunch of sacred plants in South America. Well, it's in everything, like I said, but it's non-activated. Like when you eat any types of food, it's in there, but it doesn't activate unless you get some other type of thing that can activate it. So in South America, there's this brew called ayahuasca. That's essentially
beautiful word.
Yeah, ayahuasca. And it's like a vine and some other leaf that they found in the jungle, and they put them together. And apparently, someone had a vision that we gotta get the vine, we got this. So they put them together, and apparently you take it and you can get sick from it, but that's all part of this whole process. And it's Mother Ayahuasca. It's like Mother Nature, and people go through these kind of psychedelic spiritual experiences, because essentially you're being thrown all the dream molecule that seems to be coming from the pineal gland and all stuff when you're sleeping. It's just being activated while you're awake. So then it's dimethyltryptamine. Tryptamine is also like when people trip, and that's what they call it. Tryptamine and stuff when they're hallucinating and things.
Oh, yeah.
So it's this. They call it the spirit molecule because it's in like everything, but it's non-activated, and they don't. I don't think they totally know exactly about it, and I'm not that well versed in it. But it's something that relates to your psyche. Of course, like when dreams. I don't know. You said you haven't been dreaming lately. I don't know what role dreams
I might not
play.
be. I might not just. I might
Or you
simply not know what my
just
dreams
don't
are.
remember.
But I just
know
want to
how
mention
that
something
works.
about that stomach brain.
Yeah.
Something when I'm composing, what I wait for is a certain feeling in my stomach, and when I get this
Like,
feeling,
oh, shit?
What's that?
Is it oh shit?
No, it's like it's a certainty. Wow, that's it.
Oh.
And then I'll
Like, oh shit.
that's great. Wow, yeah, that's perfect. That's what I need. That's what this needs. What this piece needs.
So is that like intuition or something? Maybe?
Yeah, some kind of
Or-
intuition, or my stomach brain is saying yes, that's it.
Yeah,
Or
probably.
my
Those trillions of bacteria that are working together to something harmonizes. And they're just like, oh,
yeah, there's a
that's a gut
an
feeling.
affirmation that and once I have that, and then it's usually the melody, say the melody for a symphonic work or for some piece that I'm writing. It's usually the melody, and that's always the gift.
Yeah.
We really don't know how melodies come into existence. We can write harmonizations till the cows come home and use our intellect and a little bit of creative assessment to set up the chord progressions that we might use. But the melodies are so so inexplicable. How does a melody?
I always feel like the melodies I always thought that they came from other melodies. Like they're just variants of other melodies that I've heard. But
Well,
I don't know.
Somebody came up with the melodies that you've heard, and
Right, and
where
where
do
did that
these
come from?
melodies come from?
birds.
Yeah, birds. Yeah, there's an organist who based his compositions on bird song.
Yeah.
Many of his compositions.
Birds and other animals or natural sounds. I mean, I was just in the woods this last weekend, and there was a lot of really cool bird sounds.
Well, see what happens in your melodic composition now. See
Yeah,
what happens.
My friend's a bird watcher who plays drums in the Comrades every once in a while, and he loves bird watching, and he's always just like, listen to the birds, man. Listen to the birds. If you want to be a good composer, you got to listen to the birds. Like, they know everything.
Well, Beethoven used to walk out in the woods whenever
Yeah.
he needed inspiration. And this organist I was mentioning, his name is Oliver Messiaen, a French composer, and he made bird songs. Listening to bird songs is a good part of his regimen. Interesting, and he used all these strange rhythms too. I mean, it's very hard to play his music because it's hard to read the
Did you
rhythms.
ever do bird noises?
I've never made bird noises. No. I saw somebody on TV do it. It was amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. There's lots of crazy noises people can make. I saw this Tuvian band. They were doing the throat singing.
What? Tuvian? What's that?
Tuvian.
Was it?
It's a country, I think.
The adjectival form of Tibetan, or maybe it's because you hear of Tibetan throat singing.
Yeah, but it's in multiple places.
Okay.
There's throats. It's in that region.
Okay, so it's another.
Tuvian. Yeah. See, this shows my ignorance. So It's
There's just so much to know,
a
so much to
region.
remember. We have so much in our heads. We read so much every day. We see so much. It's hard to keep track of all
Yeah, it's
this.
crazy, and I'm on my phone so much now. I've just downloaded an app to keep track of things, and like on average, I unlock my phone and look at my phone like probably 200 times a day.
Wow.
It's crazy. But I'm always doing something. I'm always doing, but there's always an excuse to open up. There's so much stimulus on there, and there's so much.
And a lot of it is great. I mean, all
I
these
can learn all these things.
podcasts, all these wonderful podcasts.
There's so much
About
there's so
all kinds
much
of
information.
arcane situations, arcane subjects, and knowledge is just totally fascinating.
It's
just
hard to not. It's
It's hard not to turn away from it.
But
when-
you
when
gotta
it's,
know
when it's right there.
That's
But-
why I got the app, so I can quantify it, so I can know and be like, all right, well, what's healthy and what's not. 200 is a heavy day.
That
That's
seems
a
like
heavy
a lot.
day. That's when I'm
Yeah.
like working on, because a lot of times I do a lot of work on the phone, because through Instagram or through sometimes I have to use the phone to communicate, I have to organize things that are going on, or I have to, the apps aren't, if they were all on my computer, I would love to do that. If I could do all this stuff on Instagram on my computer, I'd much prefer to do that. But sometimes to know how people consume through their phone. So sometimes you have to use the phone to understand people's experiences on it. And
that's how you get your name around, get your
right.
Your,
it's part of, you got to go where the people are at.
So do you call yourself Cullah and the Comrades?
Cullah is what I call, but Cullah and the Comrades is just an ensemble that I play with.
Group, another.
Yeah.
So you have Cullah, which is your music, and that includes anybody who you might want to use on your music for the recordings.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And then
unless there was like a live, I know a lot of the Comrades want to do a live album of like Cullah and the Comrades live.
Oh, yeah.
Like, so that would be Cullah and the Comrades. But it's just Cullah is I write the music as Cullah, and then whatever ensemble, ends up being, if it's more than 3 people, it's usually, then I start to like call it something else.
Okay.
Otherwise it's a trio or a duo. But the Comrades is just, there's a few of them, of different people that have played with the Comrades, and there's a couple rosters that I've used, which is nice. My mom would always do a couple bird calls. She was always.
Your mom could do bird calls?
Well, she could do like 1 or 2. Growing up, she would always be whistling, and I always thought, oh, that's amazing. And then when I heard this singer Andrew Bird, you ever heard of Andrew Bird?
Doing bird calls?
I think that's his real name. I don't know if it's his real name, but he's actually from Illinois. He's from such a beautiful. I think you'd really, really enjoy his music. He plays violin. He's got a lot of old gypsy jazz like type music when he first started making music, and then it slowly evolved into lots of different. Like he'll combine folk music with classical music all in one, because he can play both on the violin. And then he'll take the violin and he'll play it like he'll strum it, and he'll whistle at the same time. And he's just brilliant whistler. And when I heard him whistling, I was just like, oh my God, like I didn't even know he could. And then I just became obsessed with trying to whistle. And I'm not anywhere close to Andrew Bird, but when I'm nice and warmed up, I can do some pretty interesting things with it. But bird calls, I can do a couple, but I have to wet my whistle, and warm up to it. Try to do it like, especially when I'm incorporating it into my performance. It's like, all right, what are we gonna do here? Like when there's all these modulations, because bird calls are crazy and you can go online and you can see all the different bird calls are all mapped out. They're all pitched out. And you can see the pitches and how they move. And sometimes they're this wild, like birds aren't like, are we tuned to 440? Like they have their own way of doing things. So
that would be a great study to see what did the birds all sing in a pitch that we can recognize as the same pitch.
Yeah, how many of them are singing we don't even hear it, right? Maybe it's past our audible range. Probably not. I don't know. But I don't know how good birds' ears are.
Yeah.
Got to be pretty good if they can.
They whistle pretty high.
They do. Or they have those weird noises that aren't really whistles.
Yeah, they mix in with the pitches.
Squirrels make crazy noises. There were so many squirrels when we were out in the woods this last week. So many squirrels.
They're making noises.
And there's a partridge. Have you ever heard of partridge?
I've heard of the partridge in the pear tree.
Yeah, but have you ever heard of partridge?
Have I heard of partridge? I don't think so.
It was crazy noise. It was wild, and the wings were so loud. It was just such a loud animal. I was so surprised how loud it was. And these crazy cooing kind of noises, or like these, I don't even know. I'm sure there are words for all these types of noises they're making, but I have no idea. It's mind-blowing. I can understand how people would get totally inspired. So, I mean, wondering where the origins of melody are, I don't know. Like, humans, they started grunting. Maybe they figured it out. Like, it's part of language, maybe. Why do certain languages have melody, right? The Irish talk way up here and they go down, or like if it's
like the Chinese, it's a tonic language.
Yeah, they have 5
different
tones.
pitches. They have different pitches.
And the Thailand, I think, is 7.
Oh,
it's like damn. Like I always wonder. I listen to these Thai. Watch this. Have you ever heard of Ong Bak?
Yeah. Isn't he
Tony Jaa?
Tony Jaa, and Ong Bak is, what is that?
Ong Bak is a movie that he made.
Oh, okay, it's a movie.
I think it's about a guy, and there's another one, Tom Yum Goon, who like someone steals his elephant, and elephant are sacred in Thailand, and he has to go to Australia, and he finds it, and they like eat it. They're like they find this like this it's a whole gang of people, and this exotic foods of like endangered animals and stuff. This underground thing, and they grab this elephant.
I've seen a movie something like that. Yeah.
Oh man, it has the longest. For at least it broke a record for the longest continual fight scene, and you can see there's a couple parts of the scene where things don't exactly work out how you'd expect, but they only had like 2 chances to do it. This like
I heard that this Tony Jaa, he would watch American movies, and he didn't know that there was a lot of wiring, and so he thought that that's what you did, and so that's why he became so outstanding, because he just said, well, that's what we do. We can do it. You know what I mean? They jump off a roof and slow down. Somehow he manages to do that.
It's just a brilliant martial artist, and I mean, he's not that great of an actor. I mean, he's okay.
Yeah,
he's definitely okay. He's in tune with what he's got to do, but he's not a repulsive actor. But whatever it is, he knows his martial arts. I think whatever martial arts, it's Muay Thai, but he's involved. I know he has sabbaticals from his stuff all the time to go and be a monk and be and practice in temples. So he is a very spiritual.
Are they Buddhists?
Yeah,
Buddhists there.
So he's a very spiritual, and I don't know what type of Buddhist it is or whatever. I mean, Thich Nhat Hanh is from Vietnam, right? That's different. I don't know much about Thai Buddhism, but that guy, I love watching that. That was one of my favorite things growing up, watching Jet Li and Jackie Chan and Tony Jaa, and who was that? The guy who Donnie Yen,
I don't know that name.
Ip Man. Have you ever seen Ip Man?
No.
Oh man, if you like that stuff, Ip Man is one of the best.
It Man.
Ip.
Oh, Ip.
Ip. Yeah, it's a classic tale of. I think it's of Wang Fei Hung or something. This like classic folk legend of this ideal man, this ideal martial artist. He's a philosopher and brilliant. Like so super zen. Super, he knows exactly what's going on, facing hardships, and a lot of I love those movies because they teach history too. A lot of the Jet Li movies, when they talk about Wang Fei Hung, they teach the history of.
So that's a kind of martial art. Is that what you're saying?
Wang Fei Hung is the guy's name.
Oh, it's the guy's name.
He's like a legendary character.
Okay.
But they're all different. Like I think Jackie Chan. I know it's kung fu, but I think he's a specific type. But Jet Li was a wushu, which is like kung fu. Wushu. Champion of China for years.
Wushu.
Yeah, he's a legit martial artist. They're all pretty legit.
Yeah.
Jackie Chan was he was taught in a Chinese opera. He at an early age, so he was in the Chinese opera, which involved incredible acrobatics.
Oh.
So we're talking about the.
Is that like we'd say a circus or ballet?
Yeah,
or not ballet, but
much more like Cirque du Soleil.
Cirque du Soleil sort of thing.
Yeah, like the just wild, and talk about different melodies and stuff. Like some of the melodies of all these like chanting and these singing that these ancient Chinese, or just even more traditional folk music in China, some of it sounds like a little unsettling at first. It's like, what the hell's going on here? Like I can appreciate what's going on, but it's just so different from the major minor that we're used to here, and when you understand the pitches, like how can you sing? Like I would imagine it's a huge challenge then when your language is based on pitch, but then you have to sing too with that. So you have to incorporate.
I wonder,
you have to incorporate the pitch of your communication.
Oh my gosh, that's very interesting.
With the melody.
I wonder if they have a convention where they don't do the tonic, the tone pitches for meaning.
Maybe,
or they maybe avoid those pitches so they can sing on different pitches.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't really know much about Chinese music.
I don't know much either.
I know that they're known for the pentatonic scale, for using the pentatonic a lot, but I don't know. Maybe I know Indian music. I studied for a while.
I love that.
Indian music is very, very interesting. Very interesting.
I don't know too much about that either.
There's
rhythms,
many pitches and
crazy.
Rhythms. Oh, the rhythms, the tabla.
Yeah.
Oh, I just love the tabla. Oh yeah, you can make all those sounds. Yeah.
Yeah, the water drum.
It's great.
Yeah, I'm watching the raga. Yeah, and watching the da 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 da, and they have all the they have different ways of counting, and yeah, I saw this one video. They would because in traditional meter in Western music, it's like you have these meters, it's 4/4, and then you switch to 6/8, and then you can switch to this, and maybe it's complex here or there, maybe but it always usually goes back and forth between different meters. But there's some like in raga, there's like sequences of going up and down. Like it'd be 1 beat, then 2 beats, then 3 beats, then 5 beats, then 8 beats, then whatever. That's Pythagorean
go
theorem
back and
or whatever.
forth, and they'll have
And go all
17
the way
beats, up 17.
So then at the very end, so then you have to, because I always wondered, I would listen, I'd be like, this doesn't make any sense, because I'm trying to dissect it from,
to understand it from a Western point of view.
Yeah, because there's no repeating pattern, but the pattern is so much longer. It's like you have to know, and they seem to have a pretty rich tradition and of like written and oral training of people. Like there are actual people who communicate. Like this is a true language. The rhythm is has every type of rhythm and has a meaning, and they still have these things from thousands of years ago that where you wonder about.
And so much of it is improvised too. They'll just improvise on the raga. They'll just improvise on the scale. The raga is like the scale, I think, or whatever group of pitches that they're going to use in this particular performance, this piece, whatever the piece is. So then they play on the raga. They improvise on the raga. But I'm sure, but they do have pieces that are written down and that the singers sing.
Yeah.
But it's an amazing type of music.
Once I discovered that, it was like I would listen to it when studying and listen to it when working and just get in a trance. And the singing too, when they have these like those quavers of like they're just, but it's it's not like that. I'm not doing it justice, but like it's so impressive.
Yeah,
so impressive.
And the distances between those pitches are very
microtonal.
Small. Microtonal, yeah.
Yeah, shit's crazy.
And they have their muscles, their pitch producing muscles can differentiate between such small distances. And
that's crazy. Then these people probably developed that from an early age, and it's part of the cult. Yeah, I could only. Yeah, you wonder because they have that tradition. And India seems to be such a. I'm very ignorant about it. Like there's hundreds of languages there, and all these, and there's cities that have been there for thousands of years and stuff. Where it seems like in the Western world, we have we talk about the Greeks, and maybe it's about a few thousand years old or a couple thousand at least years old, but all these things are just ruins. Like they're in ruins that. In Greece and although Italy, well, they're still there, like the Parthenon, right? I mean, it's still
there are buildings that are pretty much intact, but they're.
But you wonder like about I always one of my favorite things to think about, and it's kind of a tragedy to think about, is when the Library of Alexandria was burned. Or
you don't even want to think about that.
I would read about in ancient China, when new empires would come, they'd go out and find philosophers, find intellectuals, find these scribes, and they'd throw them all in a pit and they just burn them all alive. All their work, all the people, all of them. They didn't want any of it to be around. When it's like new dynasty, new thoughts, new things. Like anything else is a threat. And that's a crazy tendency that humans have, and it's it seems to have happened multiple times throughout history in different parts of the world and all throughout. And you wonder about that.
All that knowledge lost from anytime that happens.
For what? I mean, probably for their power, right, or their personal gain, or their.
Yeah, they don't. I suppose they don't want the thoughts of the old regime to be perpetuated.
Like the Sophists, right? Or
sophists.
Sophists.
It's not quite
extreme.
It's not quite like that.
Who burned the Library of Alexandria? Do we know?
I don't know exactly. I thought it was burned as a result of the wars.
Someone was just smoking a cigarette.
Yeah, maybe somebody smoking a cigar. I thought it was between the wars between the I don't know who would have been. I don't know. It would have to be the Romans, because didn't that burning happen about 300 or something? It would have to be somebody who was fighting the Romans.
Oh, so it was past. Okay, so
I don't know. I'd have to look that up. I don't know.
and Alexandria. That's not Alexander the Great. That's someone else.
Oh, that's Alexander the Great.
That is.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was after that time. He was like 325 before BC.
And Alexandria. So when it says the Library of Alexandria, was that in a city called
Alexandria.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that was where named after Alexander.
Alexander, yeah. So it was after he conquered
Alexander,
so much
that's a
of
good name.
Yeah, Alexander.
Xander. I've met some Xanders before.
Yeah.
Oh, we got some. Nell says maybe Chinese music uses their language to form their melodies.
Who? Nell said that?
Yeah.
Hey, Nell. That's great. Maybe maybe their language is the foundation, the source of melodies. I wonder what those 5 pitches are. I wonder if they form a pentatonic scale.
Whoa.
That would
Penta.
be a penta. 5 pitches, 5 tones that they.
My sister Claire knows a little Mandarin. I didn't. I took 1 year of Mandarin in high school, but I don't remember the. I know like when you ask a question, it's like in English. You end with a higher
pitch.
Eh?
I know
Go
one.
there, eh?
I know one Chinese word.
Eh?
Ni hao.
Yeah, ni hao. Hello.
Yeah.
Or ni hao ma. Ni hao ma.
What is hello and then
Because
ma?
ni hao means you good.
You good? Oh, ni hao. You
You
good?
good.
You good?
No, like you good.
Oh, you are
Like
good.
good tidings.
Oh, good onto
Yeah,
you.
good onto you.
Good onto you.
You
You're
good.
good. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And ni hao ma means are you good? Yes. Or like you good. Yeah, the
So
yes.
it's an intensifier. Ma is an intensifier.
No, it's not. It makes it a imperative, I guess. I don't know. It makes it a question.
Oh, okay.
Like,
Ma is a question.
Yeah, I
When you
think
throw
in
the ma.
France they have something like that too. Where in French there's a word which I can't remember. I was trying to take. I did a few lessons of French like on the phone, and then it shows you how much you can remember from that. But there's a word, a qualifier that like makes it a question,
Okay.
and I can't remember it already.
Very
But-
interesting how our language can I wouldn't say it controls our thoughts, but our language influences the way our thoughts
Definitely.
roll out linearly. I wonder if Chinese can think on multiple levels, but they have the 5 tones.
Yeah. Because they have to because they're.
But does
there's
a
so
thought
many-
go like does a thought go like a piece of music where we go up to one tone, down to another tone, up to another tone, and
Yeah, Chinese poetry. I wonder too, like what that has to affect it. I would imagine, and because the same word, I remember the teacher was telling me like the same word, the way it's spelled and or the way it sounds, just without the tone, right? Like a sh, which is like
which is just a consonant. We would call it just a consonant.
well, sh is like
Sh. Oh, you're saying you have a little vocalization. Sh. So, sh. Not sh.
it's like in pinyin, which is like the anglicized phonetic spelling of Chinese language, or at least of Mandarin. That's what we were taught, pinyin,
Pinyin.
and it's shi, shi. But
Okay.
that word means like so many different things, and so every pitch it has a different meaning. So it's like I can only imagine how
So
difficult it would be.
that syllable on every pitch has a different meaning on every. So 5 pitches.
Yeah,
right?
it could be every
meanings?
every
5 words?
sound that people make, ma or ba or la or whatever it is. They all have
Wow.
They all have different meanings,
That is really a complicated language, and they have what
Yeah.
26,000
and they
characters.
all have separate characters for every one. And when you
26,000
combine the
characters.
characters, then they mean different things. And apparently, yeah, the traditional Chinese was pictures of. They were more like hieroglyphics.
Yeah, pictographic. Yeah.
Yeah, pictographic, right? Pictographs, but those would have poetic meanings, and they would be cultural. They're like memes. They're like these little memes in one word, and that word would represent so much. And then as over the years, it's become simplified, and then it's become more, less about the meaning of it. But I'm sure it's still there. But
I wonder how
that's
many
fucking
people,
crazy.
how many Chinese actually know the depth and the breadth of their
Sure,
language.
some, but
So, I mean, how could 26,000 characters exist in a mind for ready availability? 26,000.
yeah.
How many could you even memorize? How would you even
There
memorize
has to be
that?
some like patterns, right? There has to be some like reusability of it. I would
Yeah.
imagine like things, like I think the pictographs. There's like a lot of them share similar foundations or like.
Oh yeah, they add on. Okay,
Yeah,
yes,
like
there's some,
so
some
maybe
building it.
there's got to be some scalability to that because I know there's a lot of symbols that have like the same left bottom part. You know,
I'm gonna guess though that I bet that most Chinese use maybe 2,000, 3,000 of those characters in their daily speech. I mean, there's a lot of
should bring on a Chinese expert.
Yeah, get a Chinese expert. Yeah, that'd be fun.
I gotta learn or French or someone who speaks a different language. Someone, yeah, I feel like I don't know, English is fascinating because but that's the language meeting more and more people that speak. Anyone from a different country who's listening to this, chances are English isn't your first language, or maybe it is because you have multiple languages you were taught as a kid. But Spanish is kind of taught here a little bit. French is like a soft power language across the world, but the Spanish seems more useful, although in the United States, of a language, and I hear it more often than any other language, I would say.
Yeah.
Just because there's so much immigration from South America and Central America, I always feel like missing out on things when I don't speak, when I can. But if you have an understanding of Greek and Latin, I would imagine that can help with a lot, like learning languages and stuff. And I mean, when I read French, I can like read it better than I can. Like sometimes it's obvious, like when a word is something. Oh, a soporific.
Soporific?
Soporific.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Someone who's speaking French, she was saying that word to me because she was describing. She wanted me to compose some music for her meditations.
Yeah, for falling asleep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it means yeah.
So soporifique. It's just
soporifique. Yeah.
Well, see, French is a Romance language,
right?
And
it's based on Roman.
The Celts who lived there, and it mixed with their language mixed with the Roman language. After Julius Caesar conquered Gaul, I mean the Gauls were Celts of a kind, and so they spoke this Celtic language. And I don't even know if we know what it was.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I don't know if they had a written.
Is it more
Gallic
like?
language.
Would it be more like Irish?
Well, Irish,
Gallic, right? Or is that Gaelic is Gallic? Is that the same thing?
There might be a relationship between. But Gaelic and Gallic, maybe, yeah.
Macallic.
Alcoholic. Yeah, French, German, and the Irish.
Well, I know. Yeah, I don't know. Because that's such a unique language in, the Gaelic family of language, in Scotland and Ireland, and I mean, in the Welsh language is fucking crazy, and because that seems to be. I mean, I know the Celts were there, right? But there's also a Nordic influence there too. But that's one place that the Romans didn't conquer, right? Well, Catholics conquered there eventually, but
wait a minute. So we're talking about Ireland, right?
Yeah.
So
talking about Gaelic, like if that might be the closest to what Celtic might have been, but I don't know. That's why I'm wondering if.
Well, Celtic is a lot of things, right? The Celtic language. It's
I don't know.
There's the Picts. The Romans conquered England, Britain,
right?
And the people who lived there were the Bretons, I think, or no, Britons. Maybe the Bretons, I think, are in France. They were the Celtics.
Saxons and
the Anglo-Saxons and Jutes they were Teutonic. They were Germans who came here. So the Celtics were the Picts and the Gaels. That would be maybe
so that's Gaelic.
Maybe where Gael came from.
That's got to be right.
The Welsh, and I don't remember the name for their language. And then there's another language on the Isle of Man. I think there's a Celtic language which is none of those others that we just mentioned.
Okay, so
and Scottish.
Right.
It's fairly close to Gaelic. So
yeah, Scottish was pretty close to Irish. When I went there were still signs that were the same sign. With at least phrases that were spelled the same, more or less.
Yeah.
And they would say the same phrases and stuff. I mean, they obviously have a shared common history, Scottish and Irish. But
so then somehow the Bretons left Ireland. I don't remember how. They left Ireland and they settled in France. Yeah, by boat. But I mean, I don't know what was the mechanism. The what would you call the political mechanism why they had to leave? But they had to leave and they settled in France. and that's where Brittany is. And they're Celts, Bretons. They have their own unique culture over there too, and they speak their own. Right. They speak their own language, the language. But the French are actually Celt. They were originally Celts, but they intermarried with the Romans, and the languages intermarried. So now that's where we get the Romance languages. The indigenous people, or the people who were there before the Romans, they learned they learned the Roman and the Latin, I should say. They learned Latin, and then they mixed Latin and whatever their ethnic language was, and that produced Italian. So that's why the Romance languages have the word Romance in them. They're all Roman based, but also Celtic, some kind of Celtic, or some kind of Mediterranean.
Yeah, you wonder how many languages have come and gone that we don't even know about. Like throughout history, it's probably. Especially if there's all this proclivity for burning things and destroying, cleansing, right? Ethnic cleansing of things, and
that's a pity because of these differences. Like I was saying earlier, we can think in different languages, force us or allow us to think in a new way.
Yeah, that's like this lady said soporific, and she wasn't sure if I had in English. I had never heard that word, and I was just like,
soporific. We'd say
soporific. It's a word
at the end, not a QU.
Right, and
QUE.
And I was like, that sounds like a word. I mean, I'm sure like there's so many English words that
have come from Latin.
The French have the same word, and they just go ik instead of ik.
Yeah.
And have a little, it sounds like a little more, French. But I don't know. I didn't know that word, and then I looked it up, and I was like, oh, okay, soporific, something.
One of the things that's great about the English language is it's very capable of absorbing all sorts of languages. So the French conquered England at one time, defeated Harold, I believe it was, when the Normans. The Normans were also I think
from Scandinavia, from Norway.
I think they're okay. So they're a Teutonic people then, if they were.
So I thought that was Germanic, right?
Yeah, Teutonic Germanic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So they were a Germanic, Teutonic.
And they went in Ireland too.
And they went into Ireland. So we got all these people who
through Ireland into France again, to Normandy.
Yeah, so we've got all kinds of mixtures of the same thing, but through a new filter.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder then, there's got to be... So England has seemed to be that kind of just maybe the center of all this different mixing, and, when you read Shakespeare and stuff, Greek and Roman and Danish and all he's writing about. And
Shakespeare was supposed to have
Mediterranean and all these different. Maybe it's because it's that a point on the west of Europe where you can kind of hit those different areas. I don't know. Maybe it's got to be a geographically significant.
It's also the way the language is structured, so it doesn't need endings because. Ancient English, let's say Old English, had endings just like all the other Romance languages had.
Endings
meaning endings of the word, ending of case endings. So you had subjective, nominative, ablative.
Sure.
So English got rid of those case endings, and so we don't even today we don't have case endings except in pronouns. There's him and her. I mean him and he. Those are two cases. Nominative case and accusative case, but we don't have any of the other endings. Those are just vestiges in our pronouns.
That makes sense.
So that's one of the reasons why English is so such a mutt. It'll copulate with anybody. It doesn't worry about the ending. What about the Chinese?
What do you think? We copulate Chinese.
We've got words from. I don't remember any right off the top of my head, but I'm sure we've got words from China.
Yeah.
What about pajama? No, that was Indian.
Pajama.
Well, another thing though, the Chinese
banana.
England never during the colonial period, England never conquered the Chinese, so they didn't absorb any languages.
And the Chinese never invaded England.
We're just too far apart. We the English would have
too far apart.
Yeah, the English would have loved to.
The English, they definitely invaded a decent chunk of it.
Yeah, they did. That's right. There's.
I mean, that's a lot of these.
You know what? I take that back. There are probably a bunch of
like
Chinese
Hong Kong,
words.
Taiwan.
Yeah, I'm sure there are a bunch of words that we have from China.
There's got to be.
There's got to be a bunch of words.
Kombucha. Yeah, I think. Well, that's what some of these Jet Li movies were about, and Jackie Chan movies was really Hong Kong cinema allowing social change and social, the ideas of the English as the enemy, as that they're coming and stealing our things, they're corrupting our people, they're destroying our culture, and they're colonials. That's the point. They're doing their own little cleansing too. Just come in, take the resources, basically, change the structure for whatever it is that, the English, superiority. They believe that their way is superior. And is that different than you were talking earlier about all the schools that Alexander put around and stuff too? Is that any different?
No, it's not any different. It's just it's human nature. Human nature. As soon as you got power, you want everybody else to share in your or adopt your ways of being. Right. Actually, the Romans never did that. That's why they were so successful.
The Romans never did?
No, they didn't.
They would allow everyone to come in.
No. Here's what they would do. They would conquer. They were great at conquering. Alexander too. They were great at conquering, and when they conquered you, all you had to do was give them some money, and you could worship your gods, do whatever you keep doing, carry on.
Civilized conquerors.
Just carry on, but you got to pay us money. So they just had to pay a tax, and then they could do whatever they wanted. So they never really got the local people.
But the architecture changed. Like they'd influence technology, and they'd want to combine, right? And you'd want to if you want to play ball. You got to probably have to learn the language. You got to, I'm sure, if it wasn't as explicit, I'm sure.
The farther they got away from Rome, the less that was able to be enforced.
Sure.
And so the Roman Empire was so huge.
That's crazy that you have such a big.
What about the Persian Empire there? That was huge too.
Yeah, that's huge.
I don't know much about the Persian Empire. I don't know if they would force you to learn Persian. Or if you could keep your own language, and then if you wanted to work for the Persians, you could learn Persian, and then they'd look on you kindly.
Yeah, Persian is what's the language called? It's not Arabic, but it's there's a word for the language. I feel bad. I have a Persian friend from my high school who would always talk about it. I know the Farsi.
I think that's yeah. Yeah, I was thinking Sufi, and I knew that was
Sufi. I was thinking Sufi too.
Yeah, that's not it. But
no, there's a lot of Sufi Persians. I know that.
Okay.
My Persian friend their family are Sufis, which is mystic type of Islam.
Yeah, and who was the famous poet that was a Sufi?
Rumi.
Rumi,
Sufi, Farsi.
Yeah. That was some beautiful poetry he wrote. And the English translation is just beautiful.
I love that shit.
Just.
Rumi. I've heard. Yeah, there's some people. I've heard the song the other day about someone pining over a Persian woman and telling her to read Rumi to him every night.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, that's a. It seemed I was at this place called No Studios in Milwaukee, and they had an artist who was a Persian family who was Persian, and they had all this artwork with Farsi on it. And it's beautiful.
Wow,
it's just beautiful calligraphy, beautiful, or I don't know if it's calligraphy, but beautiful, calligraphy, right?
Calligraphy is just handwritten.
Yeah, it's all handwritten.
Letters and words.
Yeah, so it's beautiful calligraphy. And,
I think, yeah.
Yeah, and it seems like a very super rich tradition that I don't know enough about. There's so much. There's just so much.
Just a glorious thing to be alive on this planet and to have all this rich variety that we can turn to for inspiration.
Yeah, you wonder
for admiration.
What happens globally now? Like when you can when you have global empires.
I got a problem. English is becoming the national language, the international language, the global language. I do not want to see English become the international language at the expense of all the other languages.
Yeah.
Because you were saying how many languages, you were saying with some sort of sadness, how many other languages have we lost?
Right.
And all these different languages I've mentioned, and you have agreed with me, I believe, all these languages have a way of lining up your mind to go from one point to another logically. And there's or even emotionally, or even poetically.
Sure.
So there's all different ways of looking at things, and I think we need them all as much as we can, because this world is huge. This world is huge, and the more tools. A language is a tool. The more tools we have to understand the world, I think the closer we're going to get to it. Of course, we're never going to get close to it because of the Kantian second Copernican revolution. And we're getting as close as we can. I was talking to Nell today. imagination is one of the greatest tools that we have. We can't see the future, but we can imagine the future,
Right.
and we can imagine like Einstein's discoveries began as imaginations. I don't know if he asked the question "what if," but it was sort of like that.
I'm sure.
You know, it was
What if we try it like this?
you know, what if
What if that's like that?
yeah, what if this equation could be joined with this equation and
he was searching for that extra what if at the end, right? The
he was trying to find the universe. Yeah, what do they call it? Not a general theory. What do you call it? The not an ultimate theory, but
it was a universal.
Universal theory, was that it? Was
I don't know.
theory of everything?
Yeah.
Now we talk about the theory of everything. Is it possible to have a theory of everything?
Well, it seems a pretty difficult question.
Because we don't know everything.
I think all these scientists need to take some ayahuasca. That'll probably solve it.
Yeah,
They'll get closer.
Just get that imagination.
I mean, those
fired.
mystics. Exactly.
Get those imaginations firing up. And what if the world is not as scientifically based as not as physically based as we like to think of it in our scientific world, in our scientific way of thinking.
Because there's limits. The limits is the observer, right? And the limits is through your instrumentation and through your understanding. There's been limits in science for forever, and you can reason through things through your rationale, but a lot of reason is based on, like, a lot of rational thought is based in irrational thought. You know what I mean? Like, for example, if some of the most,
like quantum entanglement. What the hell is quantum entanglement across the universe? Two molecules are in communication of some kind.
Yeah. The one thing I remember hearing something from I forget what the scientist's name is. He's one of the leading thinkers on quantum mechanics, and he was talking to Stephen Colbert on his old show about it. And Stephen Colbert, he plays this kind of conservative Catholic type, traditional Catholic guy, and he was defending God and things, and it was actually, he's quite clever when he, now not so much anymore. Nowadays on the Late Show, he's much more dialed back. He's got a cushy late job. But when he was that character on that show,
when he was starting up, he was interesting and fun.
Very cutting edge, and he would push people, and he was pushing them on. It was one of the coolest conversations I heard, because it was just two really, really witty, intelligent people bantering back and forth about the existence of us. And so
you had a quantum mechanic guy.
So and the guy, he's a materialist to a degree, but to a degree, when you're a quantum, mechanist, a lot of things start to become into question, right? When you're talking about all these things, which is so much uncertainty to things. That's the superposition of everything. It's like, well, it's and he was talking about dark matter. He was talking about earlier in the conversation, they were talking about God and things, and he's, I'm an atheist and stuff, and he was talking about creation of the universe and everything, and at the end, they were talking about what the only things that they've understood about dark matter are about nothing, which dark matter isn't nothing, but he's using that as an analogy for nothing, and the only things that they found in this nothingness of dark matter is that electrons just seem to appear out of nowhere, and they just pop. They just pop up and pop out of existence through in different dimensions. That's what at least the theory is, that
and
there's
this is
12
a pattern that just continues throughout the entire universe.
Yeah, and
I forget what I read about that.
And you're talking about the molecules and
you and I are popping into complete existence and non-existence as we are talking here,
right,
a million times a second, or some.
And there's an infinite amount of possibilities of what
got off.
Yeah, so he was talking about, and I forget it's been a while since I saw the conversation, but it was a very profound, like. And Stephen Colbert knew exactly when to end it, and he said, he's like, so you're saying, the only thing we know about nothing is that something gets created from it. Talking about the creation of the universe.
That's great.
The only thing we know about nothing is that something comes from it, and
that's brilliant.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
That's absolutely brilliant.
And then he's cut to commercial. He's like, all right, I got you. No, I got the last word, but that was profound. It was
that's like the huge question. The
nothingness.
Why does something exist rather than nothing?
Right.
Because we think this is something. Why does something exist rather than nothing?
Yeah, I mean, now it's just basically, well, nothing and something are things. and they're literally no thing is still a thing. You're still qualifying something.
You know, I wrote this long poem in Latin, and it was about the ending of everything, and it was even the ending of nothing, when nothing is no more. Right along, just picking up where
when nothing is.
It was about the three fates were having a conversation, and the three fates, Clotho, Lachesis, and I can't remember the other one now, but
the snipper, the
Clotho, Lachesis.
One would hold it, one would pull the thread, one would give it to, or no, and one would cut it.
Yeah, one. Oh, maybe it's the spinner. Then someone would determine how long the spin would go, how long the thread would wind out, and then someone would cut it. One of the three would cut it. Anyway, they're having these were I presented them as nasty women.
Sure, I've heard people use them as nasty women before.
Yeah, and so they're talking about Charon and crossing over the river Styx to the end of the world, to the
underworld,
underworld,
to Hades.
And
Hades is the god of the underworld.
Hades, maybe they don't call Hades. Yeah, I think they call it Hades.
They call it Hades?
You can call it Hades, I think. What is the name of the underworld? Anyway, during the course of their conversation, they suddenly notice something is happening, and it's the end, the beginning of the end of even nothing.
So, would they run on a thread, or what?
It was way beyond. It was way beyond way far beyond their pay grade. I mean, they didn't know. Right. They didn't know what was happening.
Right, because even the fates have fate too.
And they have fate too, right? Yeah. So this is our fate,
Fates. Oh shit!
I
get it now. I didn't know what we were doing this whole time. Yeah, that's interesting.
The end of nothing. You brought that up, and that's what I thought about that about 10 years ago.
The only thing about nothing is that something is coming from it, and that's the paradoxical nature of reality that it seems to defy reason. Is nothing is something, and something is nothing, and the more traditional, tautological way of thinking, right? Of like this is this, and this follows this, and that. These have
some logical way of moving from thought to thought, almost
and they have clear relationships between
unequivocally.
Yeah,
one begets the next, and you can arrive at a point you feel like you've got a chain of logic.
You can reason it out with some discrete mathematics, and you can put it out, and you can create these formulas that will generally describe this certain this rationale to understand the inner workings of what's going on. But when all these when the whole framework changes, then all of a sudden this stuff doesn't really. It works, right? It works in its reality, but then all of a sudden it's shook, right? Of like, oh, there's more to these equations.
There's even more.
There's not just, it's not binary anymore. It's not yes and no, true and false. A ratio, right? Rationale comes from a ratio, and a ratio is just a
comparison of two numbers.
Two numbers or two things.
Two things.
And so you can describe it as this equals that, or you can describe it as this over that equals, and you're still describing it as two. And so when in quantum superposition is now saying, well, it's almost three now. Like it's yes, no, and maybe yes or no. But it all depends. If you look at it or not. If you observe it, then it becomes real. But this quantum superposition is now, and that's what is interesting about people building quantum computers is it's not binary anymore. Like it's so the idea of being able to compute based on quantum
zeros and ones.
Yeah, that's binary. So then how do you create a system that's 0, 1, or I forget the other. There's a word for all three of those states of the superposition and then the other two positions of whether it exists or it doesn't. And when looking at an atom, if an atom exists or if it doesn't, and it only exists or it doesn't, and as soon as the observer effect happens, and And so it's like, well, then are we creating that, or is it just our instruments can only understand that, or, and that's that's what's interesting about that type of thought. And I forget what they say about groundbreaking ideas like that. Like relativity has kind of been immersed into our culture. Like I'd say relatively immersed.
Yeah.
But
we know everybody knows relativity.
Right. I just use it like that, and everyone will know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like
they don't know what it is, but they know what you mean.
It's relatively like that.
A physical theory of
something
reality.
relates to something else, and it's more or less relating to these two things. And people understand that concept as a greater use. People use it in everyday. They think about frames of reference. People say it all the time, that relates to that, and everyone has their own frame of reference. Whether or not they know all the science behind it, that's different. But it's pretty much become part of the of the zeitgeist of our understanding. So quantum mechanics, though, I think still isn't there yet, because it's such a it seems very difficult to understand. And I was like, only these brilliant scientists can really do it. But there's gonna be a time in the future when kids are going to grow up with this understanding of superposition, and they're going to grow up from an early age understanding.
I don't think understanding is going to happen. Just think of the Schrodinger equation. So that's something by the guys who put Schrodinger is one of the guys who put Pauli and Einstein.
The Schrodinger cat.
Schrodinger's cat.
Yeah.
So the Schrodinger equation is just a beautiful equation. I, of course, don't understand it. I mean, I studied it. I took a course in this quantum mechanics, but I didn't really understand anything. But I learned a lot of really beautiful words, and I think that equation is just so beautiful. I mean, just look at that equation, and for a time, and maybe still today, these great minds were thinking about what do they call it? It was something some special. The answer is it was an aesthetic judgment. I can't think of the word now. An aesthetic judgment is. Anyway, so what they were doing was it was as if they were introducing into the assessment of some mathematical reality the notion of beauty. It was I just about had that word. It was it's succinct and it's precise, and it seems to cover all the
simplicity.
And it wasn't. No, it's not simplicity. It's elegant. That's it. The elegant. And that's an aesthetic judgment. That between this possible solution, and this possible solution, and that's possible solution.
There should be an elegance.
These thinkers, these scientists and mathematicians would say we'll take the most elegant solution.
Right.
That's the one we're going to go with.
Because nature is elegant, right?
Because there's some beauty that fills everything. And the Schrodinger equation was just so beautiful to me.
Yeah, I think that's what's interesting about quantum mechanics, because for the first time, more spiritual understandings of nature are blending with the scientific in a way. Because I've talked to a lot of scientists, or I was just speaking to an intuition coach who was a chemical engineer, and she was the one who said soporific, and she was talking about how she uses quantum mechanics, the framework of the ideas in quantum mechanics to describe like I was saying about how describing our place in the universe and describing how things actually work around us, and using that to develop personal growth by using these ideas of quantum mechanics, and that these are actually the most accurate ways that we know, so to a way, like all this scientific thought now is bleeding into the cultures of more mystic ideas of reality, and that that this stuff is starting to match what ancient mystics are saying. It's like, oh wait, what's going on? Like who's validating what? Are we coming up with the patterns? Or is this just a coincidental pattern between these ancient thoughts and this? But it seems
we're
like
returning. This roundabout thing that you're describing here is a return to an earlier way of thinking. For example, Aristotle was the first metaphysician,
right?
And the first scientist. Probably wasn't the first, but I mean he was one of the most important scientists.
About atoms. They knew about.
Yeah, Democritus invented the atom, and so. these philosophers at one time were just lovers of knowing, lovers of knowledge, and so if you were a philosopher,
philosophia,
philosophia, lover of wisdom. Sophia is really wisdom, but lover of wisdom, and so all these philosophers were actually the scientists, and they were the socialists, not socialists, but social science, communists. They were the communists. What's the social sciences? There was this. Social science, behavior. Yeah, they were the scientists of sociology. All these sciences. There was originally was just one philosophy,
right?
And then over the course of the centuries, and in the 19th century, we had science was introduced. I think the word science was introducced for the first time as being
is that Latin.
Science is from the Latin scio. I know sciere. I think it is. You have to have two words for the Latin. So I think it was in the 19th century that
scientific method.
The scientific method wasn't actually originally called the scientific method back at the time. So the scientific method, and there's not really one scientific method. Right. There are as many scientific methods as there are scientists. The scientific method does primarily use logic, and then there are all sort types of scientific
We were taught
experimentation.
The scientific method. It's usually assumptions. Then you make your assumptions. You declare a problem. You make a hypothesis. You do experiments. You get the results. You you try to conclude and determine whether your hypothesis are true or not, and then you repeat. And that's
a typical way of understanding the scientific method. Taught. However, it's expanded to way beyond that. I remember learning the same things. It starts with Roger Bacon. He didn't really call it a scientific method, but he was one of the first guys to talk about approaching things with. Just with clear logic, but anyway, I don't know much about that. But what were we talking about? We're talking about the Greek. My thought was that we were returning to a former way of thinking. Right. So in the early scientists, they were called natural philosophers, and their thinking and their writing, they would introduce theological elements. It was all kind of a mishmash because they were philosophers. They were the ones who studied wisdom and all its branches, and then we divided all the areas of science and knowledge into component parts. So we have, like I said, we have the socialism. No, we have social sciences. We still have philosophy, but there are so many branches of philosophy now too. Right. So we have the social sciences. We have psychology, which is you're talking about the soft sciences, and then we have our mathematics. We have all the we have chemistry. We have biology. We have classification. And so many different sciences. But now it's coming back together.
Has more branches and sub-sciences and sub-sciences and sub-sciences.
Yeah. And so now, in a way, we're coming back
to music too.
And what?
It's like music too.
What do you mean?
Like it's branched out so much. There's.
Oh yeah, you're right. I see what you mean. Yeah.
There's all these classifications and understanding of different schools of thought, and then those schools of thought have different schools, and those schools have schools, and schools and schools.
Yeah, and you have various types of hip hop. Once we just had hip hop, and now I'm sure we have
there's
various
a million.
Different types of hip hop.
Trap music is the biggest one now. Actually, trap music is.
Haven't you heard of that one? What's that? Trap.
Trap is now like 40% of what people listen to on lately streaming services. Is trap.
What is it?
It's hip hop that has a particular type of beat and uses a certain drum machine. It uses like an 808 drum machine. Have you ever heard like the beats that are like dum 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 dum? It's like that.
You're really good at that. That's great.
And they have the hi-hats. And then usually the boom. Or a lot of those marching snares. And they call it the Scottish thing where it's with those marching snare and the boom. That's the trap music essentially, and there's a certain aesthetic to it, like
cool
certain synth
sounds that are appropriate for that.
Yeah, that kind of. There's usually that booming bass and the marching hi-hats and snares, and now they're all blending, and there's like electronic music in it now. So they have these crescendos, all these or like all this, they'll have that marching snare, like, and they'll keep compressing it and being like, quarter notes to eighth notes to, and they just go up and up and up and up and up and up and up. and then they drop. That's just what it calls, like a drop, and then usually it goes into a hook or something, or it'll return back to a different.
Wow, all this stuff. I don't have enough brain cells to understand all the stuff that's happening. It's just
it's hard to
so
like
much.
even know like what's happening in the the people who are cultural anthropologists of like contemporary anthropologists, people who are studying what's going on. I can only imagine what a difficult task that is to really understand.
Look, what happened to good old fashioned anthropology? Now it's that same thing we were talking about.
There's space No, that's space archaeology.
But I have. So I'll just conclude my thought, which was that
back to,
in a way, we're returning back to the thing, because you just mentioned the fact that the spiritual life was being incorporated into various theories or
right,
and quantum entanglement. Like, what the heck is that? That seems almost spiritual.
Yeah,
there's communication across space, and we don't. Is there an ether? Newton's big thing was there an ether? Was there something in space that would be would be a medium? Now it must be a medium because if wave is both if light is both a wave and a particle, then it needs to have a medium for its wave aspects to go through the medium. So there must be an ether. But then other scientists, and I don't remember who they are, but they say there is no ether. It's just sheer nothing. Yeah. But then you're saying that something.
Well, sheer nothing is still something.
It's still something.
And the only thing we know about nothing is that it's something. And
now let me talk about that Kantian thing that I never.
Yeah, you mentioned Kant.
Okay, so
Kant and the
Immanuel Kant.
Yeah, and you mentioned something after that.
Yes, and he what he called one of his great ideas. He called the second Copernican revolution. Right. So the Copernican revolution was to
solar
put the sun at the center of, and not the universe, but of whatever it was that we were in. The sun is the center, and we moved around it.
No, it's the solar system.
So it's the solar system, yes. And
people thought it was Earth beforehand.
Earth was the center, going way back to this Greek guy, not Galileo. What's it? Another G. Anyway, okay. So he did what
he was wrong.
He was wrong.
He's full of shit.
Yeah, he was a nobody. We can't remember his name now. Actually, it was pretty important. Okay, so
not important enough.
Not important enough for me to remember. No, it's just it's edged. It's been edged out by quantum entanglement and the Schrödinger equation, and I don't have room for everybody. Though I'd like to, so I would so love to. So Kant came up with this thought that what we see, feel, hear, smell, taste is determined by the structures of our mind. So what we perceive by our whatever the structure of our mind is. It could be
like the psyche.
We don't know if it's the brain or if it's the psyche, because the philosophy of mind hasn't really discovered where does mind exist.
Where mind is
it spiritual or go back to Descartes? We were talking about Descartes, I think, a little bit earlier. Go back to Descartes. Is it spiritual or is it physical?
Right.
Or is it a combination of both, or is it something different than that? Anyway.
So the second Copernican
revolution. So he was going to launch the second Copernican revolution, and not many people really know about it. It's not. It's very big. It's very big, but it tends to be lost because it's kind of abstruse. So we have a structure. He's positing that there's a structure of the mind, and whatever that structure is determines how we perceive things, how we sense things. So I see you, and I see you as you probably see yourself in the mirror. Because we seem to have identical or nearly identical.
I mean, I'm pretty blind, but
okay. So we seem to have
physical.
We seem to have pretty
see the same physical reality.
We seem to see the same physical reality. You'll say this is orange, and I'll say that. Of course, we decided that whatever those light, whether those photons bouncing off that piece of something, we decided that was going to be orange in the English language. So
which doesn't have any rhymes.
Doesn't have any rhyme. That's a pity for orange.
Yeah,
such a great color.
Yeah. Actually, I think
like symbols.
I think Eminem came up with a bunch of rhymes for orange.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I can't remember him. That guy's a pretty good rhymer, man.
Eminem?
Yeah, have you heard him?
Oh, Eminem. Oh,
Eminem,
you're talking about a rapper.
Yeah.
Well, let me finish this, and then
go ahead.
let me finish it because that's very interesting, and we'll never come back to this. And I just got to get this off my chest. So everything we see is determined by how our mind is structured, and it's bound by the limitations. Kant didn't say this, but it's bound by the limitations of the wavelength which we can appreciate. So we have ultraviolet,
right,
going way past violet, and we have infrared going way past
right,
red, and all we
infrared.
Infrared,
Yeah.
and so we don't even have what is the cycles per second on the one here and down there? The frequencies, the hertz of these two
Right.
endpoints determine what we can see and hear, and I don't know
Same
what
with
it is.
audible sound.
Yeah, audible sound. I mean, I think I might remember.
I know the sound. I don't know the
Well, what's
sound
the,
is like 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz.
Okay, so
around there.
So between those hertz is where we can comprehend sound.
Yeah.
And then we have different hertz for the other things that we can
Because
comprehend.
it's all part of the electromagnetic spectrum for the visual parts, right? Like we just see one little part of the electromagnetic spectrum, and anything below or above, they still exist, and we can measure it. Some tools can measure them, but we don't see them.
We have no
And
comprehension.
some of them just go straight through us. Like we don't even. There's millions of different waves that are going through, probably billions, trillions.
So that's an infinite
Yeah.
amount of data, which is unavailable to us. Which could, if we could see that or feel that or hear that, we'd have a whole different view of what this world really is.
Geordi in Star Trek. You ever see that?
No,
You know that guy with the glasses who's a reading rainbow guy?
no, I don't.
He was blind at birth, and they gave him this visor, which he could see. He could see the whole electromagnetic spectrum, and he would be able to turn it on. So they would go on some new planet and be like, "Geordi, what do you see?" And he'd be like, "Oh, there's these big things of, microwaves that are coming over here or whatever." And
Okay.
And he'd be able to see all that stuff.
Ah,
So I mean, if we have tools to be able to visualize them, then I don't see
we could. Yeah,
I'm sure we could, once cyborgs become more. I mean, there are cyborgs. We were talking about in the last podcast, cyborgs, because one of the guests I had, Amanda Huff, brilliant singer. She's a auditory tactile synesthesia.
Synesthesias?
Yeah,
Auditory tactile synesthesia?
yeah.
Oh, that is amazing.
That's what I told her. She's like, well, sometimes it's overwhelming, but she's a composer and it's an interesting affliction.
Yeah, the only synesthesias that I have read about, never met any, were people who had who observed a relationship between sound and color.
Yeah,
That's but
she's
this is
tactile.
tactile.
Yeah. Actually, I met one of my yoga instructors. Her son has that too. Our daughter has a similar thing. She like put on a jacket and be like, "Oh, this feels like brown," but it's not. I mean, it's not brown by any means. It just feels like brown. So whatever her experience she has when she looks at brown, it has some sort of experience when she's touching certain types of, tactile surfaces.
Yeah, crazy.
But go back to what you're saying. So what's the second Copernican?
Oh, the second Copernican revolution is that we really don't know what we think we know.
Okay.
And
I see. So like,
So we really
so we don't know the center of our
all-
understanding,
Yeah,
as opposed to the center of the solar system.
right.
What
we don't know.
does everything revolve around?
So how do we find truth? We don't know. I mean,
I don't know.
we
either.
really don't know. So, but Kant was able to write after he came up with that. He was a scientist first. Kant was actually
really?
a scientist before he was a.
Typical German.
Yeah,
Was he German?
Yeah, he was German. Yeah. And a famous story about him is he never left his hometown Königsberg. Never left it.
Never ever.
Never left it. He went to school, whatever.
Königsberg.
Königsberg. King's City. Königsberg. King's Landing. Just to throw in a Game of Thrones thing. King's Landing. King's City. Königsberg. I think that's what it was. I think that's what King.
Huh.
Yeah. So what he did, the revolution was accomplished in his showing all of us that what we see is really not what we see.
Yeah.
So reality is not. We can't depend upon our senses to really provide the reality which we so want to study and learn about. So that's a big revolution. That's big.
Helen Keller, right? How she experienced reality is probably one of the more fascinating things about her insight into reality. You know, Helen.
I do know who Helen Keller is. I haven't read.
Well, because she's blind and
blind.
deaf and she can't speak, and so she's missing so many of the senses of how we understand reality. And I mean, that's why that's really fascinating about these cyborgs. But like, if we can see how, it's like knowing more languages, that's going to affect the way you understand things, how you view reality, how you view yourself, and how you communicate, how your beliefs are structured.
Yeah.
Are going to be all based on your understanding of reality. And senses are that. Like, you said we're only as good as our tools, and our sensory tools, that we have built into our biology can only sense so much. I mean, I studied psychoacoustics, and there are so many holes and limitations to our audio visual, like all the cross-modal interactions between senses too. When we, and that's what synesthesia is fascinating about, is because there's these cross-modal interactions that are happening in the brain. Whereas, have you heard of the McGurk effect?
No.
The McGurk effect is fascinating audiovisual illusion, and it's essentially like you'll have a flashing light and a tone, just a simple like sine tone that's being played, and the flashing light and the tone will go at the same time. You go boop, boop, and they'll flash the light again, but the tone will play twice. It'll go boop boop. Even though the light is being flashed once, you will view the light as being flashed twice, because
does it work the other way around?
It does in the other way around, in the sense of.
Can you make two sounds and no? Can
Well,
you make
the other way,
flash two lights and get one sound?
well, it's not. No, it doesn't work like that. I don't think so. But it works the other way in other aspects of things. Like if you've ever seen some visual, like maybe a movie or something, and there's some music playing, and you see, or if there's dancers that are dancing to one rhythm or something, or if there's people moving in a particular behavior, or people are moving their mouth. That's the mouth is the most simple one, where people go, if I'm going to say ba 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 ba, right, and I record that ba ba ba, but someone is just opening their mouth going like ta 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 ta, or like gla 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 gla, or whatever, you're gonna assume that that's the same. You're gonna see what matches up with the audio, or if someone, have you ever heard of bad lip reading?
I think I can understand lip reading. You can be accurate, and then bad lip reading is not.
Yeah,
being
so there's this like whole art form on YouTube and on the internet now of people will take. There's a special word for it too. Instead of bad lip reading, I think there's a more scientific term for it, but that's what people call it in the nomenclature, is bad lip reading. And search on YouTube one day, bad lip reading. It's absolutely hilarious. So people will find, they'll take interesting situations in politics or culture or whatever of people talking to each other, and they'll say their own words over it, and they'll act their own voices.
I have heard
over
that, yeah.
over what they're saying, and make them. It looks exactly, if you're a good bad lip reader, it'll make it seem like it's exactly what they're saying. And
so I think I've seen this on the internet, and it turns something into extremely hilarious.
Yeah, it's so funny.
Yeah, it's
because
you might know the actual words because it's an iconic scene.
Exactly.
A well-known scene, and
even when you don't know it, it's fucking hilarious because some of the things that people come up with of what it looks like they're saying, sometimes they have to kind of reverse engineer it. I'm sure they'll try a bunch of different words and things that I'm sure they have a whole science behind how the words move, or how your mouth moves in relation to the words and different vowels and how you're talking. Because like ba ba ta ta, ba ba la la ja ja.
That's just all
Yeah, if you're just opening your mouth, like there could be a million things that I could be saying.
Yeah.
Or if I'm, just someone can come up with something that goes over that, and it's not what I said, but so that's in a sense a type of cross-modal illusion that our senses, there's a limitation to the sense. You see it, and you can, there's a limitation to our cognition of understanding the sense, and there are big limits to that, and that's what's, I think that's the same. That's kind of the same conundrum as understanding reality, is these fundamental limitations of our senses, and science can only go so far. We have instruments that are more accurate at sensing things than us, for sure. But at the end of it, it's still our cognition that it has to filter through. Like, it's still, even though we have these great ways of measuring light or invisible light or anything on the electromagnetic spectrum, it's still, all that data, all that stuff is still going to be filtered through our cognition and our limits of understanding. And so I think I don't know that. So I think you're that I didn't know that Kant did that, or at least did he declare it as a Copernican thing, or was that what people ascribed to it?
I think he consciously wanted to declare it as the second Copernican revolution. I think I remember reading something where he was his writing, and he was saying this will be the second Copernican revolution.
It's the idea of our knowing.
Well, it's the idea that our senses do not reveal the truth to us.
Right.
Up until that point, it was pretty much
But didn't Copernicus figure out that, oh no, it's the sun? Isn't that a little like jumping the gun? Because isn't Kant just being like the same thing as all I know is I know nothing? Isn't that the same thing?
He really just redirected our attention and the attention of scientists toward what was real, which is some layer behind our senses. He didn't say there was no reality, and in a way, I was wrong to say that he didn't know anything. He knew a lot less than he thought he knew.
But that's
everybody
what you want.
That's what everybody knows a lot less than we think we do. I mean, you and I walk around this world, and we're fine. We know we can identify the colors. We can identify the speeds of the cars that are approaching us.
Hot shit. That's a Ford. Yeah, I know.
So we can
look at me. Correctly identify car. I'm a genius.
Yeah, so I don't remember what I was saying, but
I was just confirming the ideas of the Copernican thing, because it seems like, I guess I'm not fully understanding why it's such a revolution. Because
the revolution is really outstanding if you just think that up until that point we humans all considered that what we saw was an elephant. There was an elephant in Thailand. That's a wall in China that we built. That's a wall. It's just punch it. It's hard.
So it's a metaphysical revolution, or
I'd say you could. Well, it's metaphysical and physical, because your understanding of the physical is now different.
So it was more directed towards, and it was developed with the development of science, or was developed antithecally to it, or was it? Like he was just telling.
Well, by this time he had gotten into philosophy, so we're talking basically metaphysics, but it's a scientific thing.
He just won't be like, "Hey, scientists, you don't really know what you're talking about."
We don't really know what we're talking about. Yeah, we think this light that's coming at us is something.
Be careful of the dogma in science. I mean, that's what seems to be the.
Yeah, science can be a religion too.
Yeah, no doubt.
Just, yeah.
Yeah. Well.
Wonderful. What time is it?
We're at 2 hours and 18 minutes. Or so.
Oh, we probably better stop then.
There's plenty more we could talk about.
Oh, we could talk for days. I think I got a couple of I got three messages from Sharon. Oh, shoot.
Oh, man. Busy guy.
Okay, well.
Getting lit up.
Yeah, I'm all lit up because I'm on your show, man.
Yeah. That's the tea.
Your podcast. Oh, yeah, the tea was pretty good. Thanks for the tea.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Is that reality?
That's real.
That's real?
I felt it was real.
Yeah.
It tasted
Even
like a liquid.
Your senses?
It tasted to me like a liquid, and I'm going to go with that.
Okay.
It went down.
It was actually a solid the whole time.
Yeah, would that be something? Yeah. What if you could control these things? What if, What if you?
Well, that's what I think there was a legend of Atlanteans and their language. And the legend is, you're talking about the limits of language and how that affects your perception of reality. And the legend is that their language was the physical reality, that when you'd say cup of tea, for example, a cup of tea would appear. That's how much power that, that's what the ideas of spells and incantation, right? Is like the understanding that, these aren't just words they aren't just symbols, right? That the communication isn't symbology; it's actual physical it's physical reality, or not. Maybe I don't know. That's the legend, right? And it's just this, kind of fascinating concept.
Yeah, that's language and semiology. The whole science of semiology sounds like
What's semiology?
Yeah, it's the study of signs and different sign systems.
Semiology.
Semiotics. Semiology. The communication of meaning through symbols, like all the road signs.
Yeah.
That whole road sign system is a semiological system, and languages are semiology, and we were talking about something
stupid. We don't need it.
We were talking about something, and now I forget what it was, but that related.
Yeah, it's all relative, and we're related.
And we're relatives.
Yeah, that's true. Everyone's a relative, but we're just a little closer.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on.
Thank you. That was fun. That was really a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was just a joy to be here, shooting the shit with you.
Yeah, shooting some shoot. We got it.
Shooting some shoot. Oh yeah.
Shooting some shoot. All right. Well.
Okay. What do we do? How do we?
We just say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.